Live. Hello, folks. How are you out there in YouTube land? Testing 1, 2, and 3. We've got green for the sound machine. We're just popping on a few seconds early to make sure everything's okay. Getting my shit together, as we were just saying to Joe there. Big Glasgow Joe saying, Wells, don't ever get it all together. That'll be the day you die. Laughing out loud. Cosby joke paraphrased. Audio was like, thank you very much. Yeah, you got to always leave something, I think. Don't you? But I usually, yeah, I'm always a wee bit disorganized here. How are you keeping, Joe? You all right? I just had a wee revelation just before I came on here tonight about something in our book club in this tonight's chapter, and I'm all delighted because I was left a bit baffled. So I'm really looking forward to having a wee chat about it tonight, and in particular, I'm hoping Carlos Crescelius pops in just that we can check this with him. So there's Flaccid House saying evening. Big Alaska Joe saying I'm awesome. Thank you. I'm good. Not too bad. Not too bad. Flaccid House is saying always a pleasure, Doc. Thank you very much. It's 10 o'clock, folks. So I'll just say hello to everybody out there. Hi there. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, where we're working along with our God Emperor of Dune book club, and we're heading chapter 16 tonight. And we're taking Frank Herbert's Dune series apart in absolutely exquisite detail to basically try and understand it a little bit better, I think, and to enjoy it, I suppose, as well. But yes, indeed, the big Alaska Joe saying it's 2 p.m. here in Washington State, USA. We got 10 o'clock here tonight on the old GMT +1. Pardon me. It's been a bit of a day here, a bit of a week, actually. We've had funny weather. For anybody who's actually visiting in Northern Ireland at the minute, we have what I call Death Race 200 is on. Sadly, it's claimed another life today. We've had another fatal accident on what's actually what we call the Northwest 200 races, which are a big thing here. And yeah, we get a big influx of motorcyclists, about 50,000 of them into the area. So it's, yeah, another rider was nearly killed yesterday, I think, as well. I don't know, it's not a thing I'm a big fan of, I have to say. But hey, look, everyone, big Alaska Joe, Ireland has funny weather, not half. It's 50 shades of rain, if you like. I don't know, we've got more kinds of rain than you could shake a shitty stick at, Joe, to be honest. Excuse my French with the old phrase, if you've not heard that one before. But yeah, it's actually quite warm and muggy at the minute, but we're I don't know, I've got a wee electric fire in here at the minute, and I could be sitting here freezing in 10 minutes and be quite warm at the minute, and it could be lashing down in a few, you know. But yeah, it's starting to get a bit warmer here, but the rain never lets up, you know, and our summer isn't really much of a summer. It just kind of pitter patters out. We tend to get a better autumn, to be honest with you, you know. But yeah, it's if you don't mind the rain, Joe, you'd love Ireland. It does a lot for the country's beauty, I would say. You know, it's a gorgeous country, green everywhere. It's a very lush place, Northern Ireland, you know. But we've had a bit of a silly time over the last week, and our terrorism is back. Yay! Fully fledged car bombs and all of the usual crap. So for anybody who's interested, the troubles have not gone away. They're right back. But it's very, very interesting at the minute because the British government's kind of trying to turn anybody over in England who's protesting about anything into a terrorist. While we've got the real thing blowing shit up over here, you know. So as always, I look down upon that kind of stuff greatly, you know. But there we go. There's some big Alaska Joe saying hi, Carlos and Flask. There's Sootpot saying hi, Doc, watching from hospital, so I'll be quiet. Hi, everyone. Hey, Sootpot, I hope you're doing okay, sir. I hope you're nothing too bad or anything. I hope that they're looking after you well. Yeah, and that you get out soon. I was in hospital last year and I did not enjoy the experience one bit. As much as the doctors pretty much saved my life, the attitude of some of the staff in there was pretty disgusting, to say the least, you know. But I hope you're doing all right, Sootpot. Get on the mend soon and say hi to everybody around you. If you, I'm not sure what hospital you're in, but hello to everybody there who's about you. And Carlos is saying, "Hey Joe, how's it hanging?" Carlos, indeed, Carlos, I've got something to ask you tonight. You may like this, Carlos, but you've actually had the, you now have the distinct. I don't know if I would call it an honor or not, but I've written your name into my notes for this chapter, and I'll let you know about it whenever we get there. But I wanted to check the pronunciation of something with you. Flaccid House says that race is wild, so dangerous. Yeah, I've called it the death race. You know, I'm sure you know the science fiction reference Death Race 2000. There's the very, very good Death Race 2050. If anybody's not seen those, and the kind of middling kind of Jason Statham ones and so on. But yeah, it's an outrageously dangerous race, and it's unforgiving. And if you make them, there's nothing you can do to save your life if you smash a motorbike into a wall at 200 miles an hour. It's a road race through the triangle area here, so it goes through the towns. There's a wee woman got injured not too long back by one of the riders flying off the bikes and actually hit her in her own house. But it's a very famous race, and it's a very deadly race. And my condolences to the rider's family and so on. Not that they'll be listening to this, but I find it very sad. I personally think that only, whether it be men or women, that you should be single and have no children if you're taking part in such a lethal sport, But it's killed an awful lot of people over the years, and it's a bit ghoulish whenever it happens around here. What you'll get is all the local people will drive their cars past where the person died. It's a bit strange, And I said the influx of motorcyclists here at the minute, who, because it's a road race, once the race is stopped, we get lots of nutters on bikes deciding I want to be like Joey Dunlop and Robert Dunlop and so on, and I'm going to go racing on the roads when they're not closed off, So we tend to get a lot of bikers killed, actually, who are not part of the races as well. But it's ridiculously dangerous, and I don't know, it's not something I do. I wouldn't risk my life for a bit of some kicks for speed, Big Alaska Joe saying, hanging to the tune of contentment, my fellow Veda King. Hey, Soup, hope you're feeling okay, says Carlos. And Big Alaska Joe saying, the area I live in is the rainiest in USA, I believe. We have an actual rainforest environment. Wow, excellent. Soupbot saying, cheers, Doc. Yeah, get well soon, mate. Take it easy, And I said, let the nurses, tell the nurses to look after you well. And there's Julian saying, hey all, hey Doc, hi Julian, how you doing? Good to see you. Big Alaska Joe saying, hey Julian. Julian saying, hey, yo, hey, hope everyone's good. We're doing better than the Bene Gesserit today at any rate. Yeah, we've got a great wee chapter ahead for tonight, folks. A really good chapter. It's not too long. I've called this one a Byzantine intrigue for the Bene Gesserit Embassy. And interestingly enough, Carlos, I don't know if you caught that just before you popped in, but we were saying we have to have a wee quick word with you tonight about a particular word in this chapter. And it only occurred to me just before we came on. So in terms of a lot of the etymological work that we do, it's starting to get tricky. Because some of the words that Frank is using, I genuinely think I'm going to have to go and listen to some of these audio tapes. Pardon me, hopefully actually tomorrow is my bit of time put aside for it, just to see if I can get a few ideas on how Frank speaks about a few things. Let me just turn that wee microphone around a wee bit there. But some of the terms, normally we can find good etymological work that lends a lot to the meaning of characters' names and so forth. And we'll see a little bit of that tonight. But at the same time, we're starting to get some interesting phonetic character names, I suppose, which means when I go looking for them etymologically speaking, I'm not finding them. They're words that don't exist. But then we have to kind of, whenever it comes to things like that with Frank, if we can't figure it out, we sometimes have to stand on our heads, if you see what I mean, take a different viewpoint. and I was missing something tonight, and then just before we came on, it just slapped me in the face, and it's to do with Carlos and your people, Carlos. I'm hoping it's the Yaqui is how you pronounce it. In which case we've got a phonetic marker here within this chapter. We'll have a wee chat about it whenever we get there. But it was I'd given up on the word, and then I just remembered this conversation I'd had with Carlos about his people and reading about his people, and it fascinated me. And then I realized that this word in this chapter is actually that phonetically pronounced, you know. So we'll see what we think whenever we get there. Just Carlos says, saw the original with David Carradine in the theater years ago. Crazy film, I love it. Early Sylvester Stallone appearance. Yeah, I love Roger Corman films. I love Death Race 2000, and I really, really enjoyed Death Race 2050. If anyone's not seen it, check it out. And I very much a sort of typical Roger Corman film, but oh, it had a great wee song in it. Was it Drive, 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 Kill, Kill, Drive, Drive? I loved it so much. It's a great film. If anyone hasn't seen it, I give it a 10 out of 10. Both of them. Death Race 2000 and Death Race 2050. Fantastic movies. Can't beat it. You can't beat a good Roger Corman film, I think. Excuse me while I get some fluids here. A little bit of housekeeping for y'all. Very quickly, just to let you know where I'm reading. I've finally finished the first two Hyperion books. So that's Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion. And I was just been thinking about how amazing they are, how absolutely brilliant those two, but well, the whole Hyperion cantos are. And I've just decided to push on. So I'm on to book 3 of the Hyperion cantos, which is Endymion. Again, just Dan Simmons, very sad to hear he passed away recently. Very sad. I'd like to actually do a wee program and chat about him in detail. He's one of science fiction's all-time greats. The Hyperion cantos, if any of you are not familiar with it, it's certainly in my top 10 of all time in terms of series, in terms of books, in terms of writing, in terms of skill of the author. You can't beat this stuff. And particularly a great connection to one of my favorite poets, Keats. There's wonderful intertextuality in this. This is a real jump in forward. And again, if anybody's not familiar with the Hyperion cantos, if you're Dune fans, I think you would really enjoy it. But it is one of science fiction's great series. And as I said, nobody does, I think, intertextuality as well as Dan Simmons. I think he's a master at it. So nobody did it as well as Dan Simmons. Really sad to hear he passed away. But if anybody hasn't read these books, check them out. And by the way, you'll get your money's worth. These are, around 600 a piece. This one's 600 dead on, 600 pages. This jumps forward a bit from the previous ones, and we start picking up with the character of Raoul Endymion, Martin Solanus and all. I won't give stuff away. They're just too good, but I'll maybe make a wee video or two on them, at some point. In relation to my Batraco Mayomake, it's still not finished, folks. I'm sorry. I've been editing away, but I've had a bit of dry eyes, and it's very fine editing to take all the little air gasps and stuff like that you get in an audiobook out. So I'm about 7 pages through. And again, hoping to finish it this weekend. I've actually got some eye drops for the job. It's hateful when your body fails you in trying to do stuff, But we'll hopefully have that for you soon. It's a ridiculously difficult poem, I think, and I'm hoping I've done it some justice. Flaccid House says, I bloody love the whole cantos. Martin Solanus always makes me laugh. He's a fantastic character, isn't he? 100% a must for any Dune enjoyers. Yes, absolutely. You just can't beat it. Hyperion, I don't know. I think it's hit its 50th anniversary now. It's a book that consistently sells. It's still a book that others can compare. there too. It's a benchmark of quality science fiction. And it has so many good ideas in it, yet it doesn't baffle you with science and technology, yet it's there. But it's just storytelling. It's a mastercraft. You know something? I'll just say this before we get cracking. There's a level within that intertextuality. Obviously, with the Hyperion cantos, we have the big connection to the Canterbury Tales and the storytelling style within it, that we have different people telling different stories. We have an author who is award-winning in fantasy, in horror, in science fiction. A person who's got his hand in many pies, if you like. It's incredible, the variety of storytelling techniques. The ability of the author to jump from one narrative to another, to present as different characters, as different storytellers. You've got all sorts of, the story of Martin Silenus, as Flaccid House says. There's one thing in those books that makes you laugh. It makes me nearly wet myself every time I read it. Managing to tell this story with only 9 words. that are just insane. I've actually read that bit out on this channel before. Maybe we'll do it again. But it's just a joy to behold. And you've got everything in there, from really hard science fiction to like a detective stories to this pilgrimage, and one of science fiction's, possibly literature's greatest monsters. The Shrike, is an incredible monster and is a mystery. And I don't ever reveal anything about the Shrike. Pardon me. No matter what, I will not give away what the Shrike is. It'll ruin things for people. But at the same time, that monster should take its place alongside Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf. The great monsters of all time. You know the bit I'm talking about, Flaccid House. That's it. That part is incredibly funny. First time I read it, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe what I was reading. And the whole, I'll not go in because it's expletive written, but we'll read it out sometime. We'll definitely have a wee chat. We're going to be jumping on with an extra science fiction program in the week very, very soon. And yeah, just had a bit of a busy week actually here, folks. But just a delight. And I've started, as I said, just started Endymion. Hyperion's written in a particular way. We get a change in the narrative immediately with Fall of Hyperion. Endymion's different again. The thing is, this takes it even beyond what you thought could happen, the cruciform parasites and so on. The whole idea of the Pax. And I'm actually remembering stuff that's ahead in this book, and I just can't wait. So an absolute joy. If anybody's not read them, there are 4 books in the Hyperion cantos: Hyperion, Fall of Hyperion, Endymion, and Rise of Endymion. In terms of the intertextuality, if you know a little bit about the Canterbury Tales, that will help you. And here, I'll dig out my old key. There we go. I love this. I picked this up in a second-hand bookshop once upon a time. But of course, even poems like Lamia, by the way, the character of Lamia, there we have Endymion. Poetic romance described to the memory of Thomas Chatterton, 1818. And of course, Hyperion. So these are poems by Keats. I've actually got Hyperion's book marked in here. Well, a bit of a head. Hyperion, a fragment. You will, if anybody's got a good little collection of Keats's poetry, you should be able to find these. If you read those, you'll have a much Hyperion, Endymion, Lamia. If you have a little bit of awareness of the Canterbury Tales, it will really open, a bit like Frank Herbert's Dune. If you have a little bit of understanding of Greek mythology and certain things, it opens up and makes it work on so many different levels, you know. But there we go. So sorry about the gush and the rant. That's what I'm reading at the minute. 19 minutes in and we haven't made a start yet. So I'll tell you what, folks, we've got a great chapter here for you tonight. Chapter 16, not too long. A right little intrigue, and we get a good pair of Bene Gesserit sisters here at work. Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers. And once again, we're continuing with this sense of the separation of the sexes. Pardon me. Which we've had a fair bit of, especially in terms of talking about armies. Oh, sorry. Before we go on, one more thing, one more bit of housekeeping. We always keep a wee eye out for these things. We do watch other Dune channels because we're in the UK and the BBC. Curse them. It's illegal for me to watch live broadcasts without paying them money, so I don't do it, which means I can't watch live streams legally either. But at the same time, I don't really like to pop into other people's live streams as much as I'd like to say hello and have a chat. I run a channel, and I think it's a bit, I don't know, it's not really particularly polite to pop into someone else's channel, I think, if you're running one yourself to engage. But I do watch some of these things after they're live, etc. And it's just to let you know, someone who's very big into Dune content and so on YouTube is Nerd Cookies. And Nerd Cookies, I'm not sure, is her name Elaine? Possibly. Nerd Cookies is starting a Dune book club, which is always good. And just to let you know, her first episode is going to be running through chapters 1 to 3 of Frank Herbert's Dune, first book, on starting May the 14th, 2026 at 8 p.m. EST. I think that's Eastern Standard Time, isn't it? So for all of you Dune fans out there, my stuff's ridiculously complicated. You know, and not for everybody, but for those of you who like your Dune book clubs, there's a new one starting up, and should be a bit of fun for you if you're into that kind of thing. If this isn't too much for you, so check it out on Nerd Cookies channel, starting May the 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think you'll have chapters 1 to 3 to have a bit of a chat and a discussion about. I think things like that are great, by the way, because everybody's always got a different opinion about books, and it's actually the reason why I stopped being a computer science lecturer and went back to literature. I got bored of the same old, and I always thought, you know what, you could teach the same book every year and always get different opinions, learn different things about it, and everyone looks at things from a different angle, you know, as this has proved, I suppose. So check that out if you're into your book clubs. Julian saying, first read Hyperion on my gap year hiking around Scotland. Read The Secret History to be 22. I had to do it for my science fiction course. We had to read Hyperion, Fall of Hyperion, both of them within a week before we moved on. And Carlos is saying, just wish I could remember that far back, laughing out loud. Placid House is saying, we'll check that channel out. Yeah, Nerd Cookies is pretty good, I think. Does lots of good content, but as well into very much into Frank Herbert's Dune. So I'll be checking it out myself, but I won't be able to watch it live. So because I do like these things myself, you know. So here we go, folks. Let's run in with our epigraph. Epigraph number 16. The female sense of sharing originated as familial sharing, care of the young, the gathering and preparation of food, sharing joys, love, and sorrows. Funeral lamentation originated with women. Religion began as a female monopoly, wrested from them only after its social power became too dominant. Women were the first medical researchers and practitioners. There has never been any clear balance between the sexes because power goes with certain roles, as it certainly goes with knowledge. Don't know what you think about that. This is from the Stolen Journals. This is the God Emperor talking directly to us. And again, running with very much the sort of sense of the separation of sexes within God Emperor of Dune, the shift from the male to female. via the God Emperor is the pivoting point of this book in the Dune series, because once we're through God Emperor, we are moving into the Bene Gesserit books, very much female led, which is, and I always think it's fantastic how Frank does this. As to what he's saying here, I'm not sure what you think about it. Let's run through it. Let's see. The female sense of sharing originated as familial sharing, care of the young, gathering and preparation of food, sharing joys, love, and sorrows. I've written fair enough, but male hunter-gatherers, etc., would also share, and the suggestion of being a familial unit, if you like, a family unit, would involve meals. Again, we're not getting any kind of references to specific things here. Funeral lamentations originated, I figured, with ignorance, loss, fear, and sorrow. And I don't think that there's any way that we could put that down to beginning with women, beginning with men, or either. Religion began as a female monopoly. I disagree, but I know where Frank's coming from here. I've put possibly, though doubtful, and I've written here, see Medusa, for example, Stefano, Uriel. I've also talked about, see the Venus of Wittendorf, for example. I've also put here, see the priesthood in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and essentially the religious prostitute that's sent to Enkidu. So that would be our oldest text in the world, but we would have to jump way, way back. In terms of religions, there are plenty of examples within the ancient world of them being female orientated, female ruled, etc. And I've often commented about the myth that I would look at in relation to this is the myth of Medusa. Medusa means guardian. Her sisters are you might know this, my guitars are named after this lot. I don't have a guitar called Medusa, but my main bat is actually called Antigone, which is not one of the Gorgons, but my Gibson Nighthawk Special SP3 is called Uriale, and my bass is called Stefano. Stefano means forceful, which is a good name for a bass, and Uriale, my lovely, lovely Gibson guitar, means far-ranging. But Medusa originally means guardian. And if you look at the myth of Medusa, which is one of the most interesting and fascinating of myths within the ancient world, and a very unique myth, it's got so much to it that, believe it or not, I actually started writing a play about it a wee while back, and I never finished it, but it was meant to be a one-act play, and I absolutely loved the idea of it, and I must get back to it. Maybe I should just try and write it as a story or something. The idea of Medusa as a victim of rape, and the story, there's different versions of the story, but essentially that Medusa is raped by Poseidon in Athena's temple, and she's punished by Athena and transformed into what she becomes, the snakes and so on and so forth, because she has the temerity to allow herself to be raped by a god in her temple. So as much as we might think of Medusa as a monster, what's done to her, she's a victim. What's done to her is disgusting. It's not only is she the victim of a rape, but she's punished for it and transformed into, I'm sure you know what the Gorgons look like. Basically part snake, part the skin, the snakes for hair, etc. There's different interpretations of how they appear. Within the myth, I believe that Medusa and her sisters, again, there's different myths attached to it. That the other two are immortal and she's mortal. And of course, Medusa represents the fear that men have of women. Particularly in the ancient world, but at the same time, if we look at myths from a euhemeristic approach, there's a strong suggestion that, for example, the hair of the snakes was a kind of possible braiding or dreadlock type thing, and that these were the women that ran the temples, and that they're put out by a male cult, raped and thrown out and replaced, if you like. That there's a strong indication of that. It's one way of looking at it. I must dig some of this stuff up for you. But Medusa is, to me, is a bit like Asterion, the Minotaur, a creature to be pitied. Of course, you probably are familiar with her most from the Perseus myth. Again, Perseus eventually cuts her head off, and she is her head is mounted on a shield, is it a shield? It's called the Aegis. AEG. Let me just look it up quickly for you. There she is, Aegis. To do in tribute of Zeus and Athena of the Roman counterparts, Jupiter and Minerva, usually represented as a goat skin shield. There you go. My old memory's not that bad. And of course, with Medusa's head on it, which Athena would wield in battle, turning people to stone, and terrifying people as well. And of course, that's the thing, is that it's one of these disembodied heads that has power, if you like. In the ancient world, he's an very interesting character. But there's an association definitely with religion there. And again, the rape in the temple. There's different ways of looking at it, but she's definitely a character to be pitied. There's other versions of it as well that she compared, that she was meant to be very beautiful and compared her beauty, this kind of, and transformed into a. But I think that's a bit of a bleed over of other stories. But one of my favorite myths to look at and examine and speculate and wonder about within Greek mythology. And of course, the face of Medusa, I think you'll find it as on Versace, you'll find it on the flag of Sicily, between the Triskelion. Where else you'll find her? And of course, you'll find her on Gorgonaions, which are kind of like door knocker type things, little symbols to ward off evil that you can still get today. I've always wanted one, actually. I must see if I can get one. I'd love to have a Medusa door knocker. So in that sense, religion began as a female monopoly. It's quite possible that that's the case. And if we look at some of the older, bear with me a wee second, the older Celtic religions, the Venus of Wittendorf, for example. Let me just Willendorf. I've been saying that wrong. Venus of Willendorf. Why do I say Wittendorf? Excuse my malapropisms. I've inherited that. There you go. The Venus of Willendorf. That's me not remembering correctly. I've inherited malapropisms from my mum. I don't mind them at all. I think they're fun. The Venus of Willendorf is an 11.1 centimeter tall Venus figurine estimated to have been made 30,000 years ago. It was recovered on the 7th of August 1908 on an archaeological dig conducted by Joseph Svalbati, Hugo Obermeier, and Joseph Bayer at the Paleolithic site near Willendorf, a village in Lower Austria. The figure was found by a workman named either Johann Veren or Joseph Veren, and is carved from an oolitic limestone that is not local to the area and tinted with red ochre. It is in the Natural History Museum in Vienna, Austria, as of 2003. Just to see here, interpretation and purpose, similar sculptures. This is fantastic, absolutely fantastic sculpture. First discovered in the 19th and early 20th century, traditionally referred to in archaeology as Venus figurines due to the widely held belief that depictions of nude women with exaggerated sexual features represented an early fertility deity, perhaps a mother goddess. Reference to Venus is metaphorical since the figurines predate the mythological figure of Venus by many thousands of years. Indeed. Some scholars reject this terminology, instead referring to the statue as the woman or from Willendorf. Very little is known about the Venus's origin, method of creation, or cultural significance. However, it is one of numerous Venus figurines surviving from the Paleolithic Europe. The purpose of the carving is the subject of much speculation. Like other similar sculptures, it probably never had feet and would not have stood on its own, although it might have been pegged into soft ground. Parts of the body associated with fertility and childbearing have been emphasized, leading some researchers to believe that the Venus of Willendorf and similar figurines may have been used as fertility goddesses. The figure has no visible face, her head being covered with circular horizontal bands of what might be rows of plaited hair, or perhaps a type of headdress. Let's see. Catherine McCoy and Leroy McDermott hypothesized that the figures may have been created as self-portraits by women. This theory stems from the correlation of the proportions of the statues to how the proportions of women's bodies would seem if they were looking down at themselves, which would have been the only way to view their bodies during this period. That's just really stupid thinking right there. You can look at another woman across from you, or you can look at yourself in a reflection. It's not the only way you can look at yourself. Good God, sorry. Good, yeah, attribution needed. There's no reference there. That's stupid. Sorry, I have to say it out loud. They speculate that the complete lack of facial features could be accounted for by the fact that sculptors did not own mirrors. This reasoning has been criticized by University of California anthropologist Michael S. Bisson, who notes that water pools and puddles would have already been available natural mirrors. But there you go, somebody with a bit of sense. Available natural mirrors for Paleolithic humans. God's sake, dear oh dear. Let me see. Research published in 2022, indicates that the closest, most likely source of the oolite used is on the other side of the Alps in northern Italy near Lake Garda. A lesser possibility is it came from a site in eastern Ukraine, some 1,600 kilometers away. While the former has the highest statistical probability, the latter is closer to sites in southern Russia, where similarly styled figurines have been found. In either case, this raises questions regarding the mobility of ancient populations. There you go, fascinating stuff. I'm very pleased that somebody else pointed that out there. That was just stupid. Honest to goodness. But yes, so particularly fertility goddesses, that kind of thing. I think, and again, childbirth. This kind of thing, I think, is what Frank's thinking of here. Yeah, but as I said, religion began as a female monopoly, wrested from them only after its social power became too dominant. That's what made me think primarily of Medusa. We do see a sort of shift from female-orientated religions to male-orientated religions at a certain point. So Frank's not altogether wrong here. It's just a question of looking at it. Women were the... it's just a question of how you look at it, I suppose. But it's tricky to kind of come up with anything concrete from back then, if you see what I mean. Women were the first medical researchers and practitioners. Let's see. This is possible in relation to childbirth, menstruation, etc., etc. Women tend to be much more attuned with their bodies than men because of things like that. But I've also written, see, likes of Galen, Hippocrates, etc., etc. There has never been any clear balance between the sexes. Never between the sexes, because power goes with certain roles and certainly goes with knowledge. No balance between the sexes, depends on how you look at it. I think that balance is the word there. I think we are well balanced, the sexes. Possibly now. Depends on your culture, I suppose. I've written down here, Frank hasn't met me or my wife. Never is an absolute. What does balance mean? Following on from the female army and male army discussion of the sexes that we've had up until now. But this, I just wanted to point out before we move on, I'm very happy to get any of your ideas about this, but this is primarily about sharing. The female sense of sharing is how we begin this. And I think this is very much to do with the Bene Gesserit in this chapter. Now, let me just back up a wee bit there, because I've been talking. Oh yeah, Flaccid House of Sun. Check that channel out. Doing an epigraph reminds me of the Irish Keening. Okay, and would Carlos is saying, would you consider Frank an early feminist? I think so. I very much think that there's a, why not? You can be a male feminist. There's no problem with that. I would consider myself one. Well, to be honest with you, I'm a misanthrope. So my level of feminism is that I find women equally as problematic as men, put it that way. But yeah, if considering the equality of the sexes, I think very much so. And always remember, when it comes to the female characters throughout the Dune series, that Frank's wife is there. The hand of Beverly Herbert is a big influence on helping him write these characters well. I think that's one of the big things that a lot of us like, is that we've got very well developed female characters. Some people have a bit of a bother that we're actually looking at essentially as a feudal society. So whenever people might talk about, oh, women have their place in this society, so does everybody else, if you see what I mean. But the Bene Gesserit as a power, this all-female sisterhood, are very much the motivators of this universe and our story. I always like to point out that the very first thing that we hear of in Dune is a Bene Gesserit. If I just let me just quickly once we get past this is the very first line of Dune. The beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. That's how we begin. We begin with the Bene Gesserit. First group that's mentioned, first of anything that's mentioned within the Dune series, is the Bene Gesserit, and we'll end with them. You know, but yeah, I think there's a. I mean, in terms of feminism, you know, etc., it's considered such a feminist work that Cara Kennedy has done a PhD on, you know, women's agency within the Dune universe. So, you know, very much within Cara's sort of speciality, etc., as she sort of developed her academic career. There we go. Chasing Women's Liberation Through Science Fiction. Excellent read. I've got, I don't know if I should tell you, but my copy is special. And that there's a problem with it. It's a bit like a rare stamp, if you see what I mean. So for any of you who've bought her book, mine's different. Well, Cara sent me a copy and signed it as a wee thank you, but it has a very funny mistake in it, and it has been fixed. So it's a bit like, you know, having a stamp printed backwards. My copy's a little bit interesting. She actually asked me if I'd noticed it. I had, you know. So absolutely, I do consider Frank. I don't know if I could say early. There are always people who treat, you know, always certainly within how women have been treated over the centuries. There have always been men who have not been happy about it, and who have, you know, had equality or viewed themselves as women's equals, you know. But myself and my wife, for example, we're equals. We balance each other out very well. So when there has never been any clear balance between the sexes, I completely disagree, just based on my own marriage, you know, which is an interesting and odd one. I will not go into it too much. There's Chaya saying, Shalom, all Shalom, Chaya, how you doing? I hope you're keeping well. Hope your foot's well on the mend. Thank you very much for joining us. Julian saying, Carlos, I think Frank is in conversation with second wave feminism, but he had his own weird opinions. And Carlos saying, victim blaming is a time-honored tradition, unfortunately. It is indeed. Julian saying, I was under the impression the Medusa myth was adjusted later by Ovid. All of the myths are adjusted by Ovid. Ovid's a Roman. Julian, so he, in terms of, if you look at the oldest extant Greek myths, would be Apollodorus. When's he about? Let's have a look. Or pseudo-Apollodorus, as some people call him. The library. Probably Apollodorus' Library of Greek Mythology is possibly the book I've read the most. We've got him 2nd century BC. Ovid's a good bit later, isn't he? Yeah, 43 BC to AD 17. So yeah, I mean, it's the same. The Roman myths are variants in many cases of the Greek myths. And yeah, you probably expand it. In fact, anything by Ovid's a little bit different. I generally find that the Roman versions of the myths do have their own kind of particular thing. There are many variations of it, I think. I'll tell you what, we'll see. I'll have to see if we can dig it out for you at some point. I've put the book away. Of course, I know where it is. God, Mike, yeah, I'll tell you what, you can see how this book's going to fall apart soon. But absolutely one of my favourite characters in Greek mythology. I've always had sympathy for her. I said the other one the other kind of monster that I do have sympathy for is Asterion, who's the you would know as the Minotaur. Medusa, Gorgons. Got a few Medusas, don't we? Medusa the Gorgon. There's one of Priam's daughters is called Medusa, and Sthenelus has a daughter called Medusa as well. Probably Medusa, Medousa, a Gorgon 64, 66, 67. Let's have a wee quick look. This is the Perseus myth, excursus. Yeah, there's problems with the myths in relation to her, isn't there? It's especially with the Perseus myth and the Bellerophon myth. That's the problem, because it's partly because of Pegasus, because Pegasus is one of two children that springs from Medusa's cut off head, if you like, that are actually the product of her rape by Poseidon. Where are we? Bear with me a wee quick second here. And of course, Bellerophon is to do with the Chimera, but it's neither has Perseus and Andromeda. Oh, here, very quickly, I'll just read this bit for you. Perseus fetches the Gorgon's head. Polydectes, the brother of Dictys, who was king of Seriphos at the time, fell in love with Danae. And when he was unable to achieve his desire, now that Perseus was a grown man, he summoned his friends together, with Perseus amongst them, and claimed that he was gathering contributions for a marriage offering to enable him to marry Hippodamia, the daughter of Oenomaus, who you'll remember from our Palapids, if you've checked out my videos on them. When Perseus declared that he would not deny him even the Gorgon's head, Polydectes demanded horses from all the others, but did not take the horses of Perseus, and ordered him to fetch the Gorgon's head. Guided by Hermes and Athena, he went to see the daughters of Phorcus, Enyo, Pefredo, and Diano. Daughters of Phorcus by Ceto, they were sisters of the Gorgons and had been old women from the time of their birth. The three of them had only a single eye and a single tooth, which they exchanged in turn between themselves. Perseus gained possession of the eye and tooth, and when they asked him to give them back, he said that he would surrender them if they showed him the way to the nymphs. These nymphs had in their possession some winged sandals and the kibyssus, which is said to have been a kind of wallet. They also had the cap of Hades. When the daughters of Phorcus had told him the way, he returned the eye and tooth to them and visited the nymphs and obtained what he desired. He slung the kibyssus around his neck, tied the sandals to his ankles, and placed the cap on his head. As long as he wore it, he could see whomever he wished while remaining invisible to others. After he had received in addition an adamantine sickle from Hermes, he flew to the ocean, and when he arrived there, he caught the Gorgons asleep. Their names were Stetheno, Euryale, and Medusa. Only Medusa was mortal, and for that reason it was her head that Perseus was sent to fetch. The Gorgons had heads with scaly serpents coiled around them, and large tusks like those of swine, and hands of bronze, and wings of gold, which gave them the power of flight. And they turned all who beheld them to stone. So Perseus stood over them as they slept, and while Athena guided his hand, he turned aside, and looking into a bronze shield in which he could see the reflection of the Gorgon, he cut off her head. As her head was severed, Pegasus, the winged horse, and Creosaur, the father of Geryon, sprang from the Gorgon's body. She had conceived them previously by Poseidon. So Perseus placed Medusa's head in the wallet, and as he was making his way back, the Gorgons started from their sleep and tried to pursue him, but they were unable to see him because of the cap, which hid them from their view. There we go. So that's just the decapitation of Medusa. But as I said, she's basically permanently. She ends up permanently attached to a shield as a disembodied head. So yeah. Also, you said adjusted later by Ovid. I just caught that there. Sorry, Julian, missed the word adjusted, but yes, indeed. But yeah, some of the Roman versions are a wee bit funny. I prefer the myths in the original Greek, if you like, you know. Rivka said, Chaya saying the stories are about men on the surface, but women's roles move much of the action in all the books. Jessica, Alia, Shanna, the Bene Gesserit, the Honored Matres. It's not the man's world you expect. I agree. Let's me type it in the Venus of Willendorf. Chaya saying certainly the Hebrew Bible models a shared partnership between the sexes as the ideal until the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Then the balance of relationship power shifts to men. Julian said Beverly makes her voice heard more and more as these books continue. On a personal level, I came to appreciate her voice and see what Frank saw in her. Yes. If we understand that it's sometimes it's pretty difficult for, I don't know. I'm not too sure why. I think women generally don't have bother writing about male characters and making them realistic, but it can be a problem for male writers that their female characters can be like either unrealistic or just some, I don't know, sex symbol type eye candy type thing, something along along for the right. You get a lot of that in science fiction. Damsel in distress, this kind of thing. There are some male authors who do female characters very, very well. And I'm thinking actually a lot of one in particular would be Ian M. Banks. Most of the culture protagonists that you read about in the culture stories, most of the driving characters are female, and they're very well written. Who else? Oh, I've got a cracker for you. What's considered a great sort of feminist work? That's by a man. Yeah. Halo Jones. Alan Moore. He's quite well known for his female characters. The Ballad of Halo Jones, if anybody doesn't know it, is just as gold. It's one of 2080's greatest ever stories. It's the complete thing in 3 volumes. I'm hoping to God that nobody's ever gone back and touched it and just left it alone. Very sadly, the art is exquisite. And of course, it's by one of 2080's greatest artists, Ian Gibson. You can see his original work there. There's Halo and Toby the dog and so on. It's unfortunately the copies that I got have been they've been colorized, which is a thing that Americans do. So these would originally have the odd color page, but they would have been in black and white. I've got the originals on my computer. In fact, as colorists go, the person who's done this has done, Barbara Nolsenzo is her name, hasn't done too bad a job. But I've often found, I don't know why it is that American comics have to have a colorist as well as an artist. I don't know if that's universal or not, but it's something I've noticed a long time. Whereas British comics, you would have the artist. So each 2080 credit within this, you'll not find Barbara Nolsenzo's name on it, just to show you each 2080. There we go. Where are we? Right, sorry, just try. Can you see that there? In the bottom corner. There we go, the 2080 credit card. You have a script robot, an art robot, and a lettering robot. That's all that's required for British comics. Artist, writer, and a letterer. I don't understand the need for having a separate artist. The thing is that Ian Gibson's color work is incredible. He's one of my all-time favorite art. He's probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite artists from Judge Dredd. From 2018. He's done some of the best stories ever, and he's if anybody, I don't know, you can probably see them behind me. Oh, there we have the Daily Dreads. A lot of them are his work. He's a great black and white artist. He's a great color artist as well. and responsible for some of the best stuff that's come out of 2000 AD. You know, Halo Jones is by Alan Moore and Ian Gibson, and we have this edition that's been coloured by Barbara Nocento. She's not involved in the original work at all, but it was the great sort of feminist comic book of the 80s, certainly in the UK. Comic strip, if you like. There's a band took the name after it. There was a band called Halo James. It's been very influential, and I'm pleased. It's 3 volumes, and that's it. And I hope nobody's ever messed with it since. And I don't know what it would remind you on. Some of it's part murder mystery. Some of it is future war. Very much in the mode of the Forever War. And some of it, I haven't read any of it. Is it the Honor Harrington universe? I haven't read any of that stuff, but I would think that the character might be a little bit similar. But coming out from the early 80s and 2000, absolutely fantastic stuff. But yes, Beverly's. I can see Beverly's hand in this all over the place. You know, and as Chaya says, the stories are about men on the service, but women's roles move much of the action in all the books. I couldn't agree more. But as I said, I'd always like to point out the first thing you find out about in the Dune universe. Excuse me, I've got a tickly nose. Is the Bene Gesserit. That's our kind of focus in many ways. And I think the one book where we really don't see too much of them, but we still have the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohame, working at things behind the scenes, if you like. One, I suppose, the book where we see them least really probably is probably Children of Dune, I think, as in terms of the Bene Gesserit. Sorry, not in terms of female characters, But I think many of the female characters in the Dune series are fascinating. I think they're very, very well written. They're fleshed out, and they don't have that kind of ring of a bad writer writing about women, if you see what I mean. They seem very real to me. But yeah, Beverly, as Gillian points out, Beverly makes her voice heard more and more as these books continue. On a personal level, I came to appreciate the voice and saw what Frank saw in her. I mean, she's essentially the breadwinner of the family, wasn't she? To encourage his writing. Without Beverly Herbert, I think we'd have no Dune series at all. And it's quite possible that Frank might never have written those books, any of his books. He might have just ended up as a newspaper man, a yellow journalist, as he called himself. So it's a very interesting epigraph. We've got an absolute there that I don't agree with, and I get some of what Frank's saying, but most of it's unprovable, I would think. If you see what I mean. Oh, excuse me. All right. Let's see. Sorry, bear with me a wee second. I'm just going to bring a bit of a light over here. Oddly enough, I've grabbed some things off for casual reading outside of my main book, but I've grabbed just in relation to what we were chatting the other day, last time. It's piqued my interest. I've got this. Well, I'm sure you know, I'm a classicist. I've got loads of these, but particularly the Bacchae is by Euripides. I've decided to have another reread at it. This collection that I have, interestingly enough, talking about women, the body of literature that surrounds post-Trojan War within the Greek world focuses heavily on a large amount of the women involved in it. But this little collection that I have is the Bacchae, but the plays within it are Aeon, the Women of Troy, Helen, and the Bacchae. Women of Troy poignantly reveals the horror of war, a theme also woven into comedy Helen, in which Euripides good-humouredly parodies himself. The Bacchae is his last surviving tragedy and masterpiece, explores the psychology of mass violence. So just in relation to what we're looking at, I thought it might be worth having a wee look at Euripides. I could get them read pretty quickly. As always, I always recommend. You know, good stuff. Can't beat it. If you like your plays, great thing about a play is you can have it read in a couple of hours. You know. So let's get cracking, folks. Here we are. For the Reverend Mother Tertius Eileen now the first problem here in pronunciation. Phonetically, I'm going to go with Anteac. I'll explain why in a wee moment. For the Reverend Mother Tertius Eileen Anteac, this had been a disastrous morning. She had arrived on Arrakis with her fellow truthsayer Marcus Clare Luyseyal, both of them coming down with their official party less than 3 hours ago aboard the first shuttle from the Guild Highliner, hanging in stationary orbit. First, they had been assigned rooms at the absolute edge of the festival city's embassy quarter. The rooms were small and not quite clean. And this is Luyseyal. Any farther out and we'd be camping in the slums, Luyseyal had said. Now, just before we go on, etymology time. Tertius is a Latin name. So it's a first name, a prenomen, which indicates the order of birth. In other words, you're third. That's interesting in relation to this chapter. It can be used in the, by the way, this is a good one. You might not know this. Tertius can be used in a poetic sense to refer to the underworld. There you go. Isn't that an interesting one? In Roman terms, Roman mythology, to be that very clear, which is ruled by Pluto. Eileen, so let's go. Tertius Eileen Anteac, or Anteac. Eileen is an anglicized form of the Irish Eileen, which is derived from the French Aveline, which means bright or radiant, beauty, also desired, little bird, or shining light. As possible roots in the Germanic Ave, which means desired or hazelnut. That's lovely, I think. Now, Anteac, I've got nothing. I can't find that word, and I've gone with sounds like antique. If we run the pronunciation, bit Greek, call the C a K. Have, in other words, something that has value because of its age. I also thought possibly it could be possibly a reference to something like Antioch, which is an ancient city it's a modern city, isn't it? I've got these notes on it here. It would be in modern day Turkey. Named after Antiochus, which means in Greek means resistant or holding out. Antioch, I'm sure you know, a city in modern day Turkey would be Antakya. It was founded in 300 BC. It was located in northern Syria at the time. It's now in Turkey and is sorry, my notes, I'm jumping ahead there. Is now the modern city of Antakya. So I honestly don't know about this one. Anteac, possibly something like Antioch, but I actually thought if we read this in terms of this antique as in something that is valuable because of age, it kind of made sense to me with the character. Tertius being, we have Bene Gesserit females having male, and again the gender swapping within the Dune series. Denny Villeneuve never needed to do anything because there's plenty of it already. Almost all the Bene Gesserit have Roman first names. Luyseyal, here we have Marcus Clare Luyseyal. Marcus, we've talked about before. We've had another character called Marcus, is a Roman prenomen, again a first name derived from the god Mars. It basically means warlike or dedicated to Mars, or martial. Claire is a French female name meaning clear, bright, or famous, derived from the Latin name Clara. Its root is clarus, implies famous or illustrious. And now this one is Luyseyal. Possibly from Lucia, the female form of Lucius from the word lux, light. And I have also put possibly like Lucerful. I might have talked about this before. I've actually got this on the computer. I've read it before. I read it a while back. Is a poem by Mihai Eminescu. The meaning there can be like evening star, light bringer, this kind of thing. We also have Lucifer. But I didn't really think that. I thought that was a bit of a stretch. Lucifer, light bringer from lux, the word for light, and ferret, it means to bring or carry. It can also be the morning star associated with the planet Venus. Mihai Eminescu was a Romanian author and poet, and his poem Lucerful was first published in 1883. His dates are 1850 to 1889, and he's considered the national poet of Romania. I've actually got this poem handy here somewhere, and it's a great poem. It really is. Interestingly enough, the association with the Lucerful is also that of Hyperion. Just having had a wee chat about Hyperion there recently. Let's see, I don't have it handy. It's about somewhere. What folder I put it into. Bear with me a wee second. It's a funny spelling. Let me just quickly check I've got it right. In fact, it's got a couple of different spellings. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. There is a link for anybody who wants to check it out on Wikipedia. That's just a little bit about the poem itself. Lucerful, originally spelled Lucerful, according to obsolete norms, variously rendered as the morning star, the evening star, the vesper, the day star, or Lucifer, is a narrative poem by Romanian author Mihai Eminescu, first published in 1883 out of Vienna by Romanian expatriates in Austria-Hungary. It's generally considered Eminescu's masterpiece, one of the greatest accomplishments in Romanian literature, and one of the last milestones in Europe's romantic poetry. One in a family of constellation of poems, it took Eminescu 10 years to conceive, its final shape being partly edited by the philosopher Titu Maiorescu. During this creative process, Eminescu distilled Romanian folklore, romantic themes, and various staples of Indo-European myth, arriving from a versified fairy tale to a mythopoeia, a self-reflection on his condition as a genius, and an illustration of his philosophy of love. The eponymous celestial being, also referred to as Hyperion, is widely identified as Eminescu's alter ego. He combines elements of fallen angels, demons, incubi, but is neither mischievous nor purposely seductive. His daily mission on the firmament is interrupted by the calls of Princess Catalina, who asks for him to glide down and become her mate. He is pursued by her to relinquish his immortality, which would require approval from a third protagonist, the Demiurge. The morning star seeks the Demiurge at the edge of the universe, but only receives a revelation of mankind's irrelevancy. In his brief absence, the princess is seduced by a fellow mortal. As he returns to his place in the sky, Hyperion understands that the Demiurge was correct. Yeah, check it out. I think I've got a copy of it. It's a text file, and I think I've probably picked it up off Project Gutenberg. But for anybody who likes a good poem, likes a good mythology, a nice bit of world building, and I think there's a few analogues there with Frank's work. However, so I don't know if that's a bit of a stretch, but if we run the name Luyseyal, I can, as in loose say all. I don't know. It's the best I've got with that name, but it kind of fits the character, if you see what I mean. As we'll find out. So there we go, folks. That's my etymological work on the two Bene Gesserit Reverend Mothers. One is much older. Tertius Eileen Antique, Anteac, if we like, is considerably older than Luyseyal. Right, so we ended there just before we jumped into that. Luyseyal says, any farther out, and we'd be camping in the slums, Luyseyal had said. Next, they had been denied communication facilities. All of the screens remained blank, no matter how many switches were toggled and palm dials turned. Antique, I'm going to go with Antique, I hope you don't mind. Antique had addressed herself sharply to the heavy-set officer commanding the fish speaker escort, a glowering woman with low brows and the muscles of a manual labourer. I wish to complain to your commander. No complaints allowed at festival time, the Amazon had rasped. And I made a wee note, I suppose, again, just in relation to female characters, for any of you, just check out the Amazons, the tribe from Greek mythology. quite possibly history as well. Check it out on Wikipedia. They're a fascinating lot. There's all sorts of interesting Amazons. So no complaints allowed at festival time. The Amazon had rasped. Anteac had glared at the officer, a look which in old and seamed face. Oh, sorry, hang on, let me just check I've written that down correctly. Oh, I've left out a word. Bear with me a wee second. Pen. Sorry about that, folks. Left out her name again. There we go. Antiques. There we go. Anteac glared at the officer, a look which in Anteac's old and seamed face had been to make even her fellow Reverend Mothers hesitate. Hang on a second. Just bear with me, I check that's correct. Anteac glared at the officer, a look which in Anteac's old and seamed face had been known to make even her fellow Reverend Mothers hesitate. Yes, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. Again, this is the sense of we are getting some phonetic names here. We're getting the usual, I think, the loaded names as well. Tertius will see why in a wee moment. The Amazon had merely smiled and said, I have a message. I am to tell you that your audience with the God Emperor has been moved to the last position. Most of the Bene Gesserit party had heard this, and even the lowliest attendant postulate had recognized the significance. All of the spice allotments would be fixed, or the gods protect us, even gone by that time. I wonder where the gods protect us comes from. This is the third person omniscient narrator, because it's not. We haven't got it italicized, I suppose. Attendant postulate bugged the shit out of me. Excuse me, I've said shit far too many times tonight. Bugged the hell out of me. I should try and keep my language a wee bit clean, so most people can enjoy this. Apologies. Let's see. I've written here attendant postulate in the sense that it should be a postulant. It's the wrong use of the word. I think it's the verb form here. Postulate in ecclesiastical law is a verb to nominate or elect a person to an ecclesiastical office subject to the sanction of a higher authority. It can also mean a requirement or a prerequisite as a noun, but a postulant is a candidate seeking admission to a religious order, from the Latin postulare, to ask, if you like. Now Frank's going to use the word postulant again, which is the correct use of it, but it's not right as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I'm just being a nitpicker. It should be the lowliest attendant postulant. It's just the incorrect use of the word. It bugged me for a wee bit there. So I think it should be postulant, not postulate the first time. And as we'll see, when the term is used again, Frank will use it correctly. The next time we'll refer to the postulant messenger. Again, it should be really a hyphenated noun there as well. Otherwise, we could take the word postulant as an adjective instead of a noun. So just a little bit of confusion with the use of the word, if you like. Antique says, we were to have been third, and just in relation to her name, Tertius. I thought, there we go. We were to have been third, Antique had said, her voice remarkably mild in the circumstances. It is the God Emperor's command. Antique knew that tone in a fish speaker to defy it risked violence. And we get her thoughts here. A morning of disasters, now this. Antique occupied a low stool against one wall of a tiny, almost empty room near the center of their inadequate quarters. Beside her, there was a low pallet, no more than you would assign to an acolyte. That's got an exclamation mark there. The walls were a pale, scabrous green, and there was but one aging glow globe, so defective, I'll read that again. The walls were a pale, scabrous green, and there was but one aging glow globe, so defective that it could not be tuned out of the yellow. The room gave signs of having been a storage chamber. It smelled musty. Dents and scratches marred the black plastic of the floor. So they've been put in a dump, basically, a really nasty place. Basically, some kind of old storage chamber. That doesn't sound particularly pleasant, does it? Scratched black plastic floor, scabrous green walls. Doesn't sound nice, and it's an insult. It's a deliberate thing. It's a political thing that the God Emperor has done to them here. Dun, 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 dun. Julian saying, no way are on festivals good parties. Depends on who you ask. We get the sense that the fish speakers have a good time at them. But not their men or their husbands or their children or anything, just the fish speakers. Was it ever mentioned what god the Orange Catholic Bible was dedicated to? I'm not sure if the Orange Catholic Bible itself has a dedication to a particular god. I know where you're coming from, Carlos. Actually, goodness, I've actually jumped past that. I put a wee asterisk next to it. I missed this, sorry. The gods protect us. And again, it's not from. I often think this is a problem for Frank. I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but it's to do with whoever's writing these books. But it's in the text. It's presented as the third person omniscient narrator, though it sounds like it's her thoughts. The gods protect us. Which gods? Which ones? I've written down triple deity in Dune. Bear with me a wee second. It's a good question. I'm glad you said that, Carlos, because I'd actually written that down and missed it because I was that busy going on about postulants. We have a few different ideas of deities within the Dune series. And of course, the idea, I suppose, of it's the Commission of Ecumenical Translators is to kind of create a universality to all religions, if you like. Let me see. There's some kind of triple goddess, triple god, triple deity that has a male, female, and neuter form of it, and it's mentioned. I'm trying to figure out where it is here in the terminology of the Imperium in Dune. So here we go. We've got the Great Mother, which is the horned goddess, the feminine principle of space, commonly mother space, the feminine face of the male, female, neuter trinity, accepted as supreme being by many religions within the Imperium. There we go. Let me see. Of course, we have the Fremen, have the dualistic Shai Hulud and Shaitan, God and the devil in one, if you like. Yeah, I should have looked this up before we came on. It was a good point. Orange Catholic Bible, the accumulated book, the religious text produced by the Commission of Ecumenical Translators, contains elements of most ancient religions, including the Mammoth Sari, Mahayana Christianity, Zen Sunni Catholicism, and Buddhist Islamic traditions. Its supreme commandment is considered to be "Thou shalt not disfigure the soul." So that's all it gives on us there. But we are told that there's a triple deity. Shai Hulud, let's just quickly check, is sandworm of Arrakis, the old man of the desert, old father eternity, grandfather of the desert. Significantly, this name, when referred to in a certain tone or written with capital letters, designates the earth deity of Fremen hearth superstitions. Sandworms grow to enormous size, live to great age, unless slain by one of their fellows or drowned in water, which is poisonous to most of the sand on Arrakis, is credited to sandworm action. Underneath Shai Hulud, we have an entry for Shaitan, which is Satan, which we have to take I generally take as an adversary. The modern sense of Satan, if you like, I think something similar in Islam. It's a product of medieval times, I think. The idea of the devil, so on. I don't know. There's definitely a triple deity there. It seems to be the form that's most worshipped within the Imperium. I'll not go too much into it for now, Carlos. I'll have a wee flick through the terminology for next time just to see if I can find anything more. But that way, the gods, if you like. Yeah, it's an interesting thing for a bit. Again, this isn't the Bene Gesserit who's saying that. Though it seems like it, doesn't it? But we do have some kind of triple deity, male, female, neuter aspect, a trinity, which is possibly some hybridization or corruption of the Trinity from Christianity. Yeah. And as I said, that kind of idea of a deity in three forms, male, female, neuter, if we think about the Dune series itself, as we move, we were talking about this pivoting from male to female, ultimately through the book God Emperor, who we have to consider gender neutral, don't we? It's interesting, whenever we do consider the God Emperor, that he takes on the worm, he takes on the sand trout in the book at the age of 10. So we have to assume that Leto hasn't moved through puberty as a human being. If he does move through puberty in whatever way it is, it's as part of a worm. And if we understand bits of him fall off and so on, I don't really want to go there too much. Let's see, just catch up with your comments here. God of the Orange Catholic Bible was dedicated to. I don't think so. So that's the best we can. I think it's always kept vague. The Orange Catholic Bible, we would have to assume, is a combination of Roman Catholicism and good old Orange Protestantism, which we know all about in this country. Again, it sort of speaks to a bit of Frank's Irish origins as well. And again, we're getting Irish names again here as well. I think the most Irishness, if you like, of the Dune series is in this book. It's a very Irish way of putting it. Dune said, I brought up the Orange Catholic Bible to Northern Irish people. They've always raised their eyebrows. Yeah, it's there. Yes, unless they've read Dune, they wouldn't get it. But they know what orange is, and they aren't Catholic. It wouldn't make sense. It would be oxymoronic to them. If you see what I mean. They should be. Orange and Catholicism are very much separated. So for anybody who doesn't get it, really, Ireland, if you look at I'm in Northern Ireland, so we're part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, as it's called. Though we're obviously not a part of Great Britain. Though our Olympic team has been absorbed into the word Team GB, Team Great Britain. Though Great Britain is the term that refers to the large island that has England, Scotland, and Wales in it. That's what Great Britain is. It's not the United Kingdom. Yeah, arguably you could call the island of Ireland Lesser Britain, if you like, in those terms. Great, it's got nothing to do with greatness, it's to do with size. It means large Britain, if you like. So the era, or the Republic of Ireland, or down south, as some of us call it up here, their flag is a tricolor, and contrary to, I've heard people describe it as the green, white, and gold, which is an attempt to remove the orange Protestant side of it. So the Irish flag represents, on the colours, the green represents Catholicism, orange represents Protestantism, and the white is God knows what, possibly me. Anybody who's not involved in that. I always thought that the Irish flag should be green, orange, and a river of red down the middle. That's just me representing all the blood. It's amazing how people come up with things. But yeah, I've heard London Irish people call it green, white, and gold, refusing to acknowledge the orange. But every Irish person will tell you that the flag is green, white, and orange. And the green represents Catholicism, and the orange represents Protestantism, the two Christian faiths of our island, if you like. So it's very much an Irish thing. But orange is actually from Holland, it's from the Netherlands. Sorry, apologies to anybody who's Dutch out there. the House of Orange. Again, our Protestantism is to do with the Dutch royal family and William of Orange in particular in the Battle of the Boyne in 1690. And of course, his line became extinct. So the Dutch royal family, I think, went through a distaff branch. I'm sure you know these terms from Dune, and is the House of Orange Nassau, if I'm not mistaken. But the House of Orange is extinct because William of Orange had no kids, as far as I know. Holland's were. I love the Dutch people, but very interesting. They're very proud of orange, and I've been over in the Netherlands on their national day. Everybody wears orange, and it has none of the associations whatsoever anymore that it has in Northern Ireland. I think they might be possibly a wee bit baffled by it, but yeah. Now, the Netherlands' greatest export to this country is not cannabis; it's orange Protestantism and their royal family. So there we go. But yeah, Northern Irish people would raise their eyebrows at the idea of an orange Catholic Bible. Some people would go nuts at you for saying that, Julian. I don't think you've encountered too much of our super wacky locals here, but there are plenty of them. We had the Jesus squad at the door the other week and got sent packing. I actually asked them, did they not think in the year 2026 that I hadn't heard of Jesus, and why did they feel the need to wake me up? They got absolutely annoyed at them. I keep funny sleeping hours, and they woke me up. Some people have nothing better to do except go around and annoy people, you know. I don't mind people's faith, but I firmly believe you should keep it to yourself. You know. Big Alaska Joe says, personally, I've always found the purple Catholic Bible easier to read and apply day-to-day living. Lols, I think purple would be much better. Purple nurples. Ironically, the colour King Billy flew at the boy was green, says Julian. We celebrate within this country a major holiday of the 11th of July. So we're heading towards it now, so people are starting to build their bonfires again. That'll go on for all the way up to the 11th of July. These massive bonfires that will be built all over the country and set fire to. And it's got a little bit of the silliness to it. And then, of course, that's the night before the 12th of July, which is all the big parades with all the bands and so on, the Loyal Orange Lodge bands. But the battle itself didn't actually occur on the 12th of July. If you shift the calendar, I believe it was on the 1st of July. Julian said, "Oh, don't get me wrong, Doc. When it comes to Northern Ireland, I know when to keep my mouth shut around certain folks. Most of our crazies are they stick out like a sore thumb, and we have an awful lot of them. And they're Protestant and Catholic. This country has but before people started talking about mental health and stuff, we just always knew that Ireland's full of mad people, and always has been. We have a real bunch of nutters here, you know. We do crazy better than almost anybody, I think. We really do. It's you know, and I'm probably not too sane myself. I've always said that if everybody in Northern Ireland is sane, then I can't possibly be. I must be mad. You know, as Alice in Wonderland, we're all mad here. But yes, indeed, very much that's the Orange Catholic thing for it. I know it's always baffled a few people, but Frank does have a big Irish Germanic connection. It's the two sides of his family, if you like, are German Protestant and Irish Catholic, and essentially your Orange Catholic Bible is that's Northern Ireland pretty much through and through. You know, and Ireland to a degree. Ireland itself still has a Protestant population. It's not massive. Interestingly enough, Boy George was being interviewed, the singer. What's the Irish comedians? Is it we have kind of like our own version of the Late Show on RTE. God, I couldn't tell you. Patrick Keelty was interviewing him. I saw this. It was a clip from Sky News in Australia, which is really just kind of, I don't know what the hell's going on down there. It's like a gossip channel. And he was being pro-Jewish basically in Ireland, and talking about, you know, his friends and so on, and that he tends to choose people who are his friends because he likes them, etc. But he asked the audience if they knew any Jewish people. and the audience was quiet. Nobody went yes. And the Sky News picked up on this as some form of anti-Semitism, and didn't seem to realise that he wasn't in England or the United Kingdom at all, that he was actually in Ireland. And I think the Jewish population of Ireland, I think by the last census, is about 2,700 people. It's one of those things where asking the people, do you know anybody who's Jewish? Nobody answering is probably because they don't. And it's not, it's not some people going, oh, some of my best friends are Jewish or this kind of thing. It's just quiet from the audience because they don't. There aren't too many Jews in Ireland. There's even less in Northern. I think I mentioned that we had a Jewish wedding in Belfast not too long back, and I think it was in the Belfast Telegraph, and I think it was the first Jewish wedding here in ages, and I was really pleased to see it. I thought it was a great thing. But the Sky News kind of thing picked up that I think they thought the audience was English and that they were being anti-Semitic, and they're complete and utter fucking ignorance. Excuse my French. The way they were going on about it, not realizing that he's in Ireland and that there aren't many Jewish people here. And I said, look, I mean, basically, if you ask me, do I know any Jewish people? I know some of, like, for example, Chai and so on. I know a few of you are Jewish, but I've never met a Jewish person in this country ever. And it doesn't make me anti-Semitic. It's just that there aren't too many. But there's an awful lot of people I haven't met because we don't, Ireland's always been a very insular country. For a long time. It's changing because it's a modern world, and we're becoming a multicultural society, and I think it's a good thing. I genuinely do. But it's an example of that. It's very much been this or that, us and them, as we like to put it. And it's bizarre, but it's interesting how that particular thing, those Australian news pundits or whatever the hell they're called, gossip mongers, I think they are, in Sky News Australia, just didn't understand that and took the audience as quiet as does nobody know anybody who's Jewish in the audience? No. He could have asked the same question, does anybody know any Russians? The audience would have been quiet, What about anybody from Venezuela? You know any Venezuelans? No, it's an insular country and they're pretty much, dare I say it, there's been a lot of inbreeding in Ireland as well, But yeah, that's an example of that kind of stupidity and ignorance, I think. But very much the Protestant Catholic thing, that's your orange Catholic. I said you'll see it in the flag of Ireland, and our history and the Troubles, and Catholics and Protestants are back at it. By the way, they're absolutely full of hatred for each other. They tolerate. I think tolerance is the word mostly. But what we have is a kind of the new IRA on the march. They have a car bomb at a police station there this week, I think. And these are the people that murdered, shot Myra McKee in the head. And the British government's having talks with them, rather than arresting the whole lot of them, shoving them down a deep dark hole. And when I mean terrorists like that, I mean Protestant and Catholic. I don't discriminate. I can't stand any of them. Personally, they're just evil, mentally ill people who drink too much, I think, and think that blowing innocent people up with £1,000 car bombs gets you what you want politically. And of course, it never really can it? To be honest with you. But there you go. Yes, Julian, thank you for. Sorry, just to clear that up, folks. But yeah, I think we have a triple goddess. A god, goddess, neuter deity within the bulk of the Dune universe. We're told that most of the great houses actually are agnostic, I think, and they don't really know if the gods exist or not, but they use it politically. But in relation to that transition of the books, where we're moving from the male into the neuter with the God Emperor of Dune, and whenever we come out of this book, this Dune series will be female orientated, and it kind of matches the idea of the universal divinity that they have. Well, as I said, we seem to have other localized deities and things and superstitions and that kind of thing. I always like, when it comes to swearing, by the way, I always like the phrase "by the gods." I love that. It's an old-fashioned thing. It's not that I believe in them, but I think it always sounds more dramatic, I think, than "oh God." But "by the gods" is a great thing to say, I think. Here we go, folks. I'm off on one. Let's get back here. That was jumping off of the jumping back to the gods protectors there, I think. Now, so the dingy quarters. On we go. Smoothing her black Abba robe across her knees, Anteac leaned close to the postulant messenger. That's better. Who knelt head bowed directly in front of the Reverend Mother. The messenger was a doe-eyed blonde creature with the perspiration of fear and excitement on her face. Sorry, I'll read that again. The messenger was a doe-eyed blonde creature with the perspiration of fear and excitement on her face and neck. She wore a dusty tan robe with the dirt of the streets along its hem. "You're certain, absolutely certain," Anteac spoke softly to soothe the poor girl, who still trembled with the gravity of her message. "Yes, Reverend Mother." She kept her gaze lowered. "Go through it once more," Anteac said, and she thought, "I'm sparring for time." I heard her correctly. I need fluids. This is a nice little technique that Frank uses now and then. The character will repeat the thing for me. It's as much for the character, it's actually for us. So that we know that tensions have possibly been built up here. We're not party to what's happened, but we're going to repeat it for our benefit. So I've just written a nice technique for the reader's benefit. The messenger lifted her gaze to Anteac and looked directly into the totally blue eyes, as all the postulants and acolytes were taught to do. Now, apart from Leto II, pardon me, pardon me, folks, sorry. I have a tendency, as I'm sure you know, where are we? Whenever I do my notes, I tend to draw eyes because they're quite important, I think, in terms of how Frank works. I think this is the first character we've had with all blue eyes so far. Who's not Leto II? Because the last time I've drawn eyes that are blue, there they are, they're Letos. So I tend to, whether eyes are open or closed and stuff, I just do kind of cartoon versions of them. Yeah, so someone who's a Reverend Mother who's obviously melange addicted. So the messenger lifted her gaze to Anteac and looked directly into the totally blue eyes, as all the postulants and acolytes were taught to do. "As I was commanded, I made contact with the Ixians at their embassy and presented your greetings. I then inquired if they had any messages for me to bring back." Yes, girl, I know. Get to the heart of it." The messenger gulped. The spokesman identified himself as Othwi Yake, is what I'm going to go with. Temporary superior in the embassy and assistant to the former ambassador. So before we jump on, etymologically speaking, this one gave me problems. Carlos, this was why I was saying it was you that having a chat with you before made me think about this. It could be Othwi Yake, but there's no such word as Yake. And then it made me think that we had a wee chat one night about Carlos, you were telling me about your people, and it was I looked it up, and the pronunciation we weren't too sure, and I believe is the Yaqui tribe. Oth would be Middle English spelling of oath, by the way, from the Old English oth, which is like an A with the letter thorn, which is an obsolete letter in English, but it's you ever see those wee things where the people go, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, this kind of thing. Oh no, here I'm thinking of another thing. That's not thorn, is it? Maybe it is. Maybe it's just a different writing of it. Bear with me a wee quick second. That would be the letter thorn. It's actually hear thee, hear thee. Yeah, it is thorn. Duh. Sorry, excuse my French. I got the smaller version of it. Yes, indeed. Be the letter A with the letter Thorn. Known as Thorn or Thorn is a Latin script letter in Old English, Old Norse, Old Swedish, and modern Icelandic alphabets, as well as modern transliterations of the Gothic alphabet, Middle Scots, and some dialects of Middle English. It was also used in medieval Scandinavia, but was later replaced with the digraph th, except in Iceland where it survives. The letter originated as the rune Thurisaz in the Elder Futhark and was called Thorn in the Anglo-Saxon, Thorn or Thurs in the Scandinavian rune poems. Similar in appearance to the archaic Greek letter Sho, although the two are historically unrelated. The only language in which Thorn is currently in use is Icelandic. There we go. That's quite interesting. I like that. Yeah, it's the same with it. We have a version of it which is kind of almost like a Y. In English, which would be here, you often say hear ye, it was actually hear thee, which makes much more sense. So, if basically what I was doing is splitting up Othwe here. Oath meaning an oath, if you like, a judicial a judicial swearing, a solemn appeal. That was a good spoonerism there. As a name, Oth derived from the old High German Ot, meaning wealth, prosperity, or inheritance. I got nothing for it really, but I couldn't get a single name. And then I actually thought that if we break the name up, it's Ot Hui, as in Hui Nori, which I think we did a little bit of work on before. Not that I can find it right now, but I'll check it out for you for next time. And we did a wee, I'm sure we did a wee something on Hui Nori there. But if we break it up, it's Ot Hui Yake. I've got Yake, and I also went with it could be an Americanized form of the German surname Yak, which is also Polish. Luxembourgish, it could be Yoke. Yak's German, meaning abrupt. It's an archaic form of German. But then I went Yaki tribe, Carlos's people, and I've written it down in the book here, Carlos. So I'm hoping that's how you pronounce it, but I think that's, again, we're starting to get, I think, phonetics here. And Frank has used terminology from Native American, North American Indian, whatever you want to call the term, tribes and so on, South American Indian as well, South American Native tribes. Indian, my understanding in that sense, is from indigenous, as opposed to Indians, I feel like. I'm not sure if that's true or not. And I hope nobody's offended. I'm Irish and I'm ignorant of such things. So let's see, just to catch up. Big Alaska Joe says, I like how it doesn't matter which religion one is. Everyone else is somehow not just wrong, but evil and must end. It shows me that we humans are still apes, just barely grown past the trees. Yeah. I mean, I'm screwed, basically. Doesn't matter really. Protestants and Catholics all have me in hell when I drop dead. I'm doomed for eternal torture. Which makes me think that if they're correct, then their definition of God is incorrect. It can't be omnibenevolent at all. I don't know. But at the same time, I've done enough reading and have enough knowledge to know that they made most of that shit up. And it's not true. But yeah, it generally seems to be a bit of mutual. Not every religion's the same. I think some are quite happy to let you do your thing. We've got our thing. Off you go. But a lot of others are. You must believe what we believe, because if or else, and it's a form of mutual madness. You have to believe what I believe, because otherwise I must be mad. Sometimes I think that's the way it works. You get people will react extremely violently here in Northern Ireland to any kind of criticism of their religion. Last time I met a Catholic, I think I told you about it. He's a person I know who's attended charity gigs and stuff like that. Turned out he's a very, very false person. Said certain things about my mother when she was dying. Turned out that they were all not true. And he was slagging off some people, and I sort of pointed out that they're just like his people, and at which point he threatened to kill me. When he was going to get his shotgun, had to get a cop onto him, But yeah, it's the old adage is that you don't talk politics or religion in this country. I disagree. Talk it as much as you want. It brings out the madness in them. It's I don't know. It's like a poultice of madness. Draws it out. I think it got to a point there with our own, particularly the Protestant politicians, that they're on TV, a local TV show, and with excuse me, with I suppose unionist politicians on with nationalist politicians like Sinn Féin, the SDLP, and so on. And every time these people were on TV, they completely lost it. Their rage, their anger, and their hatred just seeped out of them. And it got to the point where they refused to go on to the TV show. And it's simply because you can see them for what they are, and they don't like it. Religion hides a lot of things, I think, but ultimately, as I said, we've talked about from the term, religion is actually just something that you stick to, that you adhere to. That's the definition of the word. What evolves out of that, I think, is, but there's so many of them. But I kind of like to think either they're all right or they're all wrong. Goodness, I was reading about the Bible the other night, actually, just for looking for a reference. Just flicking through the Old Testament. For example, the definition of the Abrahamic God is omniscient, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, and omnipresent. I have a real problem with the omnibenevolent part of it based on the text, and I have a real problem with the omniscient part of it based on the text. The Old Testament God in the Old Testament is not omniscient, and he's not omnibenevolent either. And that's the simple truth of it. At the same time, the book's probably got nothing to do with the God himself. He probably didn't write it. Generally, I find that books are written by men and not gods. And if you were an omnibenevolent, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent God, I have no need. If it was me, I'd have no need of a book to tell everybody on the planet what to do and how to behave. You just all know it instantly because I would have that power. If you see what I mean. I don't know, especially if you look at the ancient Greek gods and so on and so forth. It's the same thing. They're promiscuous. They're malignant. They're not particularly nice, and I'd argue they're not particularly worth worshipping either. To be honest with you. At the same time, I think I told you before, I'm quite impressed by people of real faith. I don't want to generalize it at all. And there are many, many religions out there. Many of them behave themselves. I've been raised in the land of Christian terrorism and murder. It's where the number one. We've kind of taught the world terrorism in this country, but it's religious terrorism and it's Christian terrorism, and it's never gone away. The Troubles is a euphemism for the Northern Irish people and the British people, and it's a term for everybody who's involved in the ethno-religious genocide attempts that have gone on here. That, if you want to define the Troubles, that's what it is. But the Troubles aren't a what, a where, a when, or a why. They're a who. And the English are the Troubles, the Scottish are the Troubles, the Irish are the Troubles, the Northern Irish are the Troubles, the Catholics, the Protestants, all of them. The Americans are the Troubles, by the way. The Russians are the Troubles. The Libyans are the Troubles. They've all pumped weapons into this country and explosives that have been used to murder people. For some reason, there's a lot of groups that have kind of taken interest in this country. But one of the things that a lot of people forget about the Troubles is, well, the main period of it, if you like, for as far as I'm concerned, it's been going on for pretty much over a century, is that it was particularly when it's got bad, as part of the Cold War. And so you have outside groups manipulating and pushing things here because it would cause bother to the British government, for example, But there you go. Sorry, enough of that. Let's see. Joe says, I like how it doesn't matter which religion one is, everyone else is somehow not just wrong but evil and must end. It shows me that we humans are still apes, just barely grown past the trees. It's why I'm a misanthrope, Joe, to be honest with you. Though I think I've tempered my hatred of the human race over the years. I've just come to despise it and to pity it. I think true misanthropy comes from knowing that we could be better, all of us, you know. I often mean, I always sort of forget to say this, but as when I start my program and say hello, I always kind of want to do something like bonsoir, guten Abend, buenos noches, hello everybody, good evening, greetings to all of you cosmopolitans, as Carl Sagan would have put it. We're all citizens of the universe. There's only one human race. You know, racism can out the window. There, you know, if there's any other races of human beings, as I'd like to say, I'd love to meet them, but there aren't. Racism is just bigotry, whether it's against the color of the skin or a location or whatever. But the idea of racism is just remarkably stupid to me. And you know, there's a solar system out there that needs colonizing, and you know, the universe is there to be our playground if possible. And we can't stop slaughtering each other and killing each other over this, that, and the other, whether it's religion, money, oil, whatever. It's all remarkably stupid. Land, it's all stupid. It really is. We'd be a lot better together as a species. And I don't know why we can't figure it out. We talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. We like to think that we're enlightened, and we're not. We're still in the dirt. And a couple of us are looking up at the stars, but most of us are faces in the mud. And as I said, I think it's often very easy to blame other people for your problems. I think almost everything comes from there, rather than just fixing things yourself, understanding what's wrong. You know, but when I meet people from different countries, different cultures, different religions, I'm always pretty respectful. If you haven't done anything to hurt me, I've got no problem with you. I don't care what it is, whether you know, sexuality, religion, nationality, ethnicity. I don't care. You're a human being, and it's your differences that make you interesting to me. That make me want to chat and say hello and get to know you. You know, and I'm sure I'm quite an unusual person to most of you guys. I'm quite unusual to most people in this country. I'm considered very odd. People often try to get violent with me. You know, it's it's bizarre. And it's just because I'm smart and I've got a mouth on me, basically, and I don't I'm the sort of person that pick a fight with a bully and that kind of thing, or someone who's trying to force their way on to someone, that kind of thing. I'll come straight for you. I don't like that kind of behavior, you know. But we're all humans, and we should all just get. You know, I just think we'd be a lot better together than we are divided, and our differences can be our strengths, you know. But it's, yeah, how do we get everybody to kind of get on board with that? You know, I don't know. The human race is crushingly disappointing to me. And I think it has been ever since I was a little kid. You know, Christianity ended my childhood pretty much. It introduced me to murder, death, kill, car bomb shootings, torture, crucifixion. There's a lot worse. That's it. And I've always had a very low opinion of the people of Northern Ireland because of it, and then Ireland in general, and the rest of the UK, and all of it. You know, the Troubles just miffed me off. I don't know, it's probably because I'm a modern person, product of the end of the 20th century, that kind of thing. Yeah. And quite possibly, believe it or not, why I do what I do, because of science fiction, because I'm a dreamer, and because I'd rather dream great dreams for the human race than the bad ones, you know. Science fiction often it's almost a half and half bag in terms of positivity and negativity. Do we have a good future ahead of us, or is it apocalyptic doom, this kind of thing? It's had the ability to present all of these scenarios to us and speculate on, you know, what was the old Latin phrase, quo vadis, where are you going? You know, straight to hell by the looks. You know, at the same time, we've just sent a couple of, you know, 4 people around the moon. We can achieve so much. and do so much when we work together and we can help each other out. It's, I don't know. As I said, I'm a misanthrope, but I'm crushingly disappointed in the human race. I like individuals, and the odder the better generally, as long as they're not dangerous or violent. Oh goodness, let me see. We've probably got might be conversation going on here. Let's just see. Carlos was saying, Joe, I think more people have died over religion than for any other single reason. Most likely. It's a good point, Carlos. And which means they, by the way, Carlos, I would agree with you, but from my point of view, that means they died for nothing. If you see what I mean, that's my. Their deaths were pointless and worthless. Just a loss of life, you know. If you die for religion, I don't know. It's when you kill someone because of their religion. If you're killed because of just gutted, I think I'd be very annoyed if I was murdered by a religious person because I don't have faith or because I have faith, you know. Baked Alaska Joe says, I've come to the conclusion after 20 years of wondering that if there's any sort of God at all, it is a child playing with a 5th grade science fair project who has long since put us on a shelf. Carlos says, I have got a big problem with omniscience. What's the point of anything if you already know the outcome? It basically means all of existence is a giant rerun. Some of this is what we're talking about is the God Emperor, isn't it? It's omniscience means to know everything. Omnipotence is to be all powerful. Omnibenevolence is to be all good, and omnipresent is to be everything. And it's interesting that we never had gods described like that prior to the Abrahamic deities, and I often think that the qualities of gods develop as a form of one-upmanship. Our God is better than your God. Here's why. There's a very good part in Conan the Barbarian, the movie, where Conan and Subutai are having a wee chat about their gods, you know, and Conan goes, my God is Crom, strong in his mountain, you know. And Subutai tells him his God is the wind. He's above your God. And it kind of makes Conan go, And Subutai wins the God top trumps game there. His God is seemingly superior to Crom. He's a good old Irish God, by the way. Well, we're going to have a talk about Crom when we hit the wormy stuff, aren't we? We've got some more wormy stuff to come. Crom Croch is his name, the crooked man, the crooked one. He's a worm. By the way, Crom is the snake, if you like, the worshippers of Crom. There were never any snakes in Ireland. He's a worm, and this is the religion that St. Patrick supposedly removed from Ireland, which he didn't. It's a complete myth. And that actual story is associated with a different Irish saint, believe it or not, but it's come to be hybridized and made part of the St. Patrick myth. Fundamentally, to me, if there is a universal deity or whatever, I think the only thing that you could do would be to divide yourself. That what is the universe? I suppose it comes down also to the idea within the Abraxas idea within Gnosticism and the various kind of how would we put it, esoteric religions that developed out of it, is what's the point of creating mankind? And the idea is that it's because I'm bored and I need something new, and that mankind kind of has free will because God needs to be entertained. The idea, I suppose, one of the ideas of that kind of type of deity is that it's nothing to do with whether you're good or evil or not. It's how original you are, how new, what can you do that I haven't seen before. And as every generation of mankind moves forward, there's always something new. Excuse me, folks, making a bit of noise here. Just make a wee quick cigarette. But it becomes a deeply problematic thing. I suppose religion is one way of looking at it, but if you start to look at it philosophically, evidentially, this kind of thing, it does become a big problem. And to me, interestingly enough, if you define an all-powerful creator God as omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, what you described to me is a definition of utter hell. In fact, it's the ultimate hell, isn't it? I can't think of anything worse. It's a curse. It would be the worst curse imaginable. And we get, again, we're looking at the book, this is the God Emperor of Dune, in relation to what we're talking about. It's very important because this is the malaise of the God Emperor, and he's not a real God in that sense. He's not omnipotent, he's not omnipresent, he's not omnibenevolent, and he's certainly not omniscient, but he's in terms of knowledge and stuff, he's close to being omniscient, but he's not the full shilling, if you see what I mean, you know. That's probably not the best phrase to use. Not the full shilling means you're mad, but but he's not quite the full thing, if you see what I mean. He's a minor deity, but his problem, his malaise, is, I think, the problem of a deity like that, you know. And again, not wishing to insult anybody's faith or anything like that, or religion. It's an interesting thing to talk about, you know, and I think it's interesting to discuss these things, but there's certainly no bias in my own point of view or dislike of any particular religions except the ones that are here. And just to be clear, by the way, I don't mind Catholics and Protestants at all. It's Catholics and Protestants in this country because there's plenty of other Catholics and Protestants all over the place that are just perfectly lovely and fine and don't do any kind of mad religious terrorism kind of stuff at all. It's kind of a pity, I think, that those kind of Catholics and Protestants haven't ever managed to get that influence into this country. But I know plenty of Catholics and Protestants, for example, from England, Scotland, Wales, etc. Know them from Europe. Met a few Americans as well, and and Canadians. You know, there's a lot of Christians in the world, and they don't bother me in the slightest. It's just we've got a particular insular brand of madness here. And I said, I know Protestants who actually believe that from the New Testament that the Battle of Armageddon will be fought by Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland, and that 144,000 that go to heaven will be from here. That's how bonkers it is, you know. And that particular opinion, by the way, that was expressed to me by teachers, primary school teachers. One main teacher, one a deputy headmaster. And that's what they teach. You know, that kind of stuff bleeds into our primary schools fundamentally, and that's where the problem is. You know, though we do now have integrated primary schools that are Catholics and Protestants go to school together. My son went to an integrated primary school, so it's not that there's too many of them, but I think it's a very, very good idea, and hopefully it will start to heal things over time. But yeah, what's the point if you know everything? No surprise, and nothing's new. You know, and even just, I don't know, it just sounds like an utterly despairing, desolate, lonely, hateful existence. Big Alaska Joe says, oh, Carl, hang on, I think I missed a comment there. Carl says, we'll only accept that we're all the same race when the aliens show up. Then we'll have someone else to hate. I often thought about trying to write a little story about aliens turn up on Earth and they land in Northern Ireland and they present their religion. And see how that goes down, you know. Big Alaska Joe says, I sincerely hope aliens have a lot more patience than we have. If they get here, if aliens ever get here, Big Alaska Joe, they'll have to be way more advanced than us. But if they do come this far for our lovely little planet, I think we're in trouble. Because it's a great resource for water, isn't it? I don't know. It depends. Yeah, there's lots of things to do with things like the Fermi paradox and stuff like that. Why, if they're out there, why haven't we seen them? Why haven't they turned up? But it's pretty hard to get from solar system to solar system, I would say. Takes time, takes effort. Joe says, I sincerely hope aliens have a lot more patience than we have. Ch16, I'm quite happy with my framework of reality being governed by a creator. I've got no bother with that sense either. It depends on the nature of the creator, and but it always falls down to, well, who created the creator? If we're looking for creation, what's the origin? Where do things come from? And do something come? Can something come from nothing? And I don't know. The universe, to me, I think science is. I think we're in a period where science is, and throughout the 20th century, the massive influence of science on our societies. I don't know where it's taken us to, but at the same time, a lot of our other sciences have failed us, and particularly within physics at the minute, astrophysics, that kind of thing. Cosmology, would that be it? It's all up in the air. It's nobody's. They're all looking at it's all wrong. Quantum mechanics is wrong. It's all and an awful lot of it seems to have been just theoretical speculation. But it's interesting that science, it seems to be in a state of crisis at the moment. There's certain things are, look where we're at, aren't we amazing? But in terms of what we know of the universe and what it is and how it works, and I think it's all up in the air at the minute, to be honest with you. Big Alaska Joe says, if we can hope, if we can dream, if we can imagine a brighter future for our kids, it will happen for them one day. Here's hoping. I've got a son. I don't want him to grow up in a Northern Ireland. Oh, he's grown up now, but he's kind of had his childhood and teenage years relatively free of the troubles. Yet at the same time, he's heard our stories, and it's been pointed out to him time and time again that they haven't gone anywhere, that there's a peace process, but there's no peace, that the terrorists are everywhere. We had a bunch of terrorist scumbags in our house last year. Just walked in, and we weren't there at our son's house. They feel that they can, they're vigilantes and organized crime. A lot of them are mentally ill, a lot of them are alcoholics, and a lot of them think might is right, it's okay to murder people. Catholics and Protestant, if you're a Protestant, Catholics are a lesser form of life. If you're a Catholic, Protestants are a lesser form of life, this kind of thing. And they have control in a lot of the states. And the British government's kind of just let them, the whole Good Friday Agreement's just a load of shit, quite frankly, to be honest with you. Token amount of weapons handed over. I think the real problem was they were starting to go towards the banks. And that's what sort of got things moving in terms of the peace process. But if you want to get your government's attention, if you want to be a terrorist, then if you want to get what you want, seemingly you blow up banks, the banking industry. That's kind of what I think led to the peace process here. But it's a lot of the states are in complete control of terrorist organizations. They haven't gone anywhere at all. In fact, they were, the UVF, I think, paraded 1,500 members in Belfast last year. We've got a new chief constable at the minute. He seems to have gotten his arse out of his elbow out of his arse. And see, you've got the cops arresting kids now. A lot of our riots and petrol bombings, actually, the parents put their children out and give them, and off they go. And for some reason, the cops would never arrest these little children who for some reason, are out in the streets, chucking petrol bombs and stuff. But I noticed there, just in the news, they've arrested a whole bunch of them up in Derry. And it's about time. But there's no need for any of it. It's all pointless nonsense. And I don't know situation with Ireland at the minute, but the United Kingdom itself, England, Scotland, and Wales, is in dire straits, and economically and all sorts of ways, politically. And as much as people in Northern Ireland always want to stick with the United Kingdom because of things like the National Health Service, that we seem to be slightly better off under British rule. I don't know. I often thought Northern Ireland could be a wee small independent country with isonomia, but a United Ireland wouldn't be a problem really either. But I don't know. It's just all stupid, and it always has been. It's just you can't get on with other people, and you have to force your ideas onto them. And it's also really to do with leadership. Really, that the royal family, the old ideas of royalty are still within it and within the British government and its military agencies, and then you have the Catholic Church's control here too from Rome. So it's basically two foreign entities that run our country in many ways, and I don't like either of them. Not that I hate them or anything, I just wish they'd piss off and mind their own business, quite frankly. There's a message, to, to the Catholic and Protestant churches and to the royal family: piss off and mind your own business. Don't think has any Northern Irish person ever vocalized that before. I've done it now. There you go. We'll have to get back to the book, folks. I'm just going to catch up with these comments here. If we can hope, Big Alaska Joe says we can dream. If we can imagine a brighter future for kids, it will happen for them one day. If enough of us believe, says Cos. It's why I think science fiction is such an important branch of literature. I really do. I was just to do the wee joke of whenever I started doing this, say hello, everybody out there, and to everybody else in Northern Ireland. The secret is to bang the rocks together, guys. If you know the wee line from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Julian says, I came to Northern Ireland when I was 12. At first, it was really traumatizing. There's real damage here. That damage got to me, but I've come to see beauty and complexity. It's Julian, when Lito talks about the new, that's an example of Abraxas. Yes, indeed. It's one of the most beautiful countries in the world. I don't want to live anywhere else. It's so beautiful here. It's breathtaking. This is the Garden of Eden in many ways, but unfortunately, the metaphor that I would use is that it's full of serpents, green and orange serpents. And if anybody's not ever been to Ireland, it's so beautiful here. It might rain a lot, but it doesn't all the time. But it's absolutely gorgeous, and we actually have a fantastic ancient culture. You can see a lot of it around the country. We've a building in Ireland here that's older than the pyramids, and is a winter solstice clock, like Stonehenge being the summer version of it. There's so much to our own ancient history, and depending on your religious culture, you don't give a monkeys about it. It's either being subverted or your idea of history begins with Protestantism or it begins with Catholicism and not with your ancient ancestors. I'm in Coleraine here. Coleraine means the nook of the fern, and we have one of the, just across from where I am is a place called Mount Sandal, which has Neolithic settlements there, dating to between 10 and 8,000 BC. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody knows about it. A lot of our education, Northern Ireland is British Empire education, so you get people growing up here not knowing about the history of their own country at all. I don't really know. I don't think it works. It works probably something similar down south, but I'm one of the few people that has an education in Irish history from the north. Know a fair bit about it. I've got a degree in Irish studies, actually. It's my other one. China saying hope, faith, belief are a good start, but need to couple with action to build a vision. Ideals need to be made tangible to affect change. Yeah, it can be a good start. Yeah, it's hope, faith, belief. Hope to me is the denial of truth. By the way, it's if you hope for something, I don't know, it's probably not going to happen. Faith and belief, I suppose, are the same thing. But people talk about people like myself that we don't have faith, and it's not the truth at all. For example, the Islamic term, you're an infidel. It's actually Latin. It simply means not faithful. But we have faith in all sorts of things, and I don't know. Maybe part of me, as much as I'm a misanthrope, it really does come from. How do we put it? You thought better. Maybe it's just a certain type of naivety that I really thought the human race was. Come on, we can do this. we can be better than we are, and it's just that you get disappointed, you get let down, you get to see the monstrosity that we can be. You know, and it's just one crushing blow after another, I think, that leads you to misanthropy. I don't know if any of the rest of you are misanthropes, but I'm very much one. And as I said, I don't mind individuals. I actually kind of really like people, but I just have had too many bad experiences with them, groups and individuals. But I've seldom had a good experience with any kind of group, and seldom had any kind of good experience with any kind of religious group in this country. And it's actually quite the opposite, you know. If aliens do land, says Carlos, think American Christians will start a war to get them to accept Jesus as their savior. Laughing out loud. Hyperion, really? Oh, the Hyperion counters with the Pax and the cruciform parasite. That's fascinating. Yeah, what if they turn up with their own god? That would, nobody quite thinks about that. And immediately set about converting the entire planet. At point of death, that could happen. The scariest thing, Carlos, would be if aliens turned up and they're like us, and that would be the worst. I think you gotta hope that they're not. Big Alaska Joe saying Carlos declaring war is how American Ixians, was that? Say hello, so I bet you're right. Yeah, there's too much war on at the minute. We're pretty much in a state of world war, aren't we? It's everywhere. It's not a good thing. War is never a good thing. I don't know. I much prefer peace, and that's it. Violence pretty much disgusts me these days. I really just don't like it. I find it even hard to watch certain TV programs now, the level of violence. I'd rather watch a good adventure story, or I don't know, something different, something, a tale of exploration or something like that. Why does everything have to have, everybody's got a gun, everybody blows people's heads off? It's just ridiculous. And I think special effects have taken a trend of making violence ridiculously realistic on TV. Sometimes it's just hard to watch, but if you've experienced real violence, like that, military violence, that kind of thing, bombs and shootings and stuff, it's so different, it's so visceral, it scares the shit out of you. If you've not experienced it, trust me on this, it will scare the shit out of you. And the last thing you ever want to be near is that kind of civil violence or full on civil war or full on war. It's just not good. And those that push it and think it's good are mentally fucking ill, as far as I'm concerned. They're mad. And look at our world leaders at the minute. There's a collection of nut jobs in power, playing with their war toys. It's bonkers. A really fascinating book, by the way, for this kind of thing, just from a science fiction point of view. And we'll get on with it. It's a very short chapter, folks. Where are we? Wait a second. H4. There you are, sir. I've got 2 copies of this, but I can't see the single edition. I bet it's over here somewhere. There it is. Because it's such a good book. This is kind of my great sci-fi little shelf here for my little set, if you like. This is The Forever War by Joe Haldeman. If you learn a little bit about Joe Haldeman, the way this book works is very interesting. As far as I know, he's an American who fought in Vietnam and did 3 tours, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. Rejected by 18 publishers before St. Martin's Press decided to take a chance on it. Pretty good book was the usual reaction, but nobody wants to read a science fiction novel about Vietnam. 25 years later, most young readers don't even see the parallels between the Forever War and seemingly endless one we were involved in at the time, and that's okay. It's about Vietnam because that's the war that the author was in. This is the author's note, by the way. But it's mainly about war, about soldiers, and about the reasons we think we need them. And it very much mirrors Joe Haldeman's real life experiences. I got that from reading this. The separation of the people who fight in the war from whenever they return home from their own people, how they can't explain it, how they deal with it, this kind of thing, and therefore the desire to go back. Now, I don't know, most people maybe know this book. It's a pretty famous sci-fi book. We were talking about Halo Jones earlier. By the way, there's a lot of this in Halo Jones. It's definitely an influence on Alan Moore, as far as I know. But just to show you, I've also got this. Now, I've read all of these. Now, so Joe Haldeman, a lot of people don't know, we've actually got, it's a trilogy. So there's the Forever War, Forever Free, and Forever Peace. And you can buy this omnibus edition just called Peace and War, which, as you can see, there's a lot more to the story. And it is really worth reading. Really worth reading. Very enjoyable, very poignant. And it's interesting to see a science fiction reader. You know, as I said, it's really about the Vietnam War. It's about the author and his experiences, and he's, you know, turned it into this wonderful piece of fiction. In the Science Fiction Masterworks collection, by the way, this book is #1. Highest recommendation. But if you don't, you know, you can read that and be done with it, but you really should check out all the trilogy. It's absolutely worth it. You know, very, very enjoyable book. Some great ideas in it, but ultimately very sad, I think. You know, he's an interesting man. I'd like to know more about him, and I don't know any of his other books, but I'd actually like to read stuff by him. He's a very good writer. Joe Carson, Joe, war on crime, war on drugs, war on poverty. I'm beginning to see a pattern. What about war on war? Scariest thing Carlos has ever happened to me was when a group of Christians cornered me in a parking lot and tried to gang save me. I still feel violated. Yeah, Christopher Hitchens has a thing about, is it a Christian asks him, you know, what would you feel safer? A bunch of Christians coming at you in the street or a bunch of so-and-so? And he answers that actually with Northern Ireland. And says I'd shit myself if a bunch. Basically, he talks about some Northern Irish Christians coming out, and that would be very scary. Which is it's amazing where we turn up in conversation, you know. But yeah, I had plenty of them at me when I was younger. I don't Christian groups. They're very dodgy, very, very dodgy in this country. I wouldn't let my kids near them. And the reason why is continually proven in the newspapers, and with these people getting arrested and jailed, they're you know, I don't know. We have a lot of certain types within this country. Anyway, folks, let's push on if we can. I'm loving the conversation, by the way, but we've got to bring it back always. Let's see, where did we get to? Oh yeah, so the Yaki, I think that's another little phonetic reference there. We were just talking about, right? So I'll just jump back quickly before we did that etymological work and got into a good old chat about omnipotent beings. The messenger gulped. The spokesman identified himself as Othwi Yaki, temporary superior in the embassy and assistant to the former ambassador. You're sure he was not a face dancer substitute? None of the signs were there, Reverend Mother. Very well. We know this, Yaki. You may continue. So it turns out I think he's a Bene Gesserit plant. He's a spy. Yaki said they were awaiting the arrival of the new Hui Nori, the new ambassador. Yes, she's due here today. So the arrival of Hui Nori coming soon. The messenger wet her lips with her tongue. I could do that too. Anteac made a mental note, or Antique, sorry. I've got to stick to one, don't I? Antique made a mental note to return this poor creature to a more elementary training schedule. Messengers should have better self-control, although some allowance had to be made for the seriousness of this message. So this is the messenger again. He then asked me to wait, the messenger said. He left the room and returned shortly with a Tleilaxu, a face dancer. I'm sure of it. There were the certain signs of the I'm sure you're correct, girl, Anteac said. Now, get to the... Anteac broke off as Luyseyal entered. And I just quickly scribbled down here, what signs were they? We're not told, and therefore the mystery is preserved by the author, which is, again, good writing, good technique by Frank, I think. The Tleilaxu should be very much a mystery to us, even though we've encountered face dancers before. We don't know too much about them at this stage. And that's for a very good reason, and that's going to help carry on with the Tleilaxu, I suppose, into the next book. What's this I hear about messages from the Ixians and Tleilaxu? Luyseyal asked. The girl's repeating it now, Anteac said. Why wasn't I summoned? Anteac looked up at her fellow truthsayer, thinking that Luyseyal might be one of the finest practitioners of the art, but she remained too conscious of rank. Luyseyal was young, however, with the sensuous oval features of the Jessica type, and those genes tended to carry a headstrong nature. That's fascinating. Luyseyal is of the Jessica type, and we're told about her genes tended to carry a headstrong nature. I've written next to this that those must be Harkonnen and Mohiam genes. It's also strongly suggestive that whatever the nature of the God Emperor's breeding program that he's taken from the Bene Gesserit, that there must be some kind of breeding program still going on with the Bene Gesserit. It's the Jessica type. And it makes me headstrong, I suppose, just like Jessica. It makes me wonder why they would, want the genes of that type, especially after all the harm that Jessica's choice and, her disobedience, if you like, all the way back at the start of the story has caused the entire universe. Anteac spoke softly. Your acolyte said you were meditating. Luyseyal nodded, sat down on the pallet and spoke to the messenger. Continue. The face dancer said he had a message for the Reverend Mothers. He used the plural, the messenger said. He knew there were two of us this time, Anteac said. Everyone knows it, Luyseyal said. Anteac returned her full attention to the messenger. Would you enter memory trance now, girl, and give us the face dancer's words verbatim? The messenger nodded, sat back onto her heels, and clasped her hands in her lap. She took 3 deep breaths, closed her eyes, and let her shoulders sag. When she spoke, her voice had a high-pitched nasal twang. So this is the message. Tell the Reverend Mothers that by tonight the Empire will be rid of its God Emperor. We will strike him today before he reaches on. We cannot fail. Pardon me. A deep breath shook the messenger. Her eyes opened and she looked up at Anteac. The Ixian, Yaki, told me to hurry back with this message. He then touched the back of my left hand in that particular way, further convincing me that he was not, it's left unspoken, but not a face dancer is what I've scribbled here. Yaki is one of ours, Anteac said. Tell Luyseyal the message of the fingers. Sorry, I kept thinking you could see my fingers there. I have my table set up a little bit differently today. Just because usually I kind of turn my monitor and end up sort of sitting at a certain angle. I decided to turn the table today. It's just because we have a glass door there, just to give everybody else in the house a bit of privacy. Yaki's one of ours. He's a Bene Gesserit agent. I always find it interesting how the Bene Gesserit employ men. The messenger looked at Luyseyal. We have been invaded by face dancers and cannot move. I've just scribbled down here. It's all a wee bit invasion of the body snatchers, this, isn't it? As Luyseyal started and began to rise from the pallet, Anteac said, I already have taken the appropriate steps to guard our doors. Anteac looked up at the messenger. You may go now, girl. You have been adequate to your task. So this is not praise from the Bene Gesserit. Yes, Reverend Mother, the messenger lifted her lithe body with a certain amount of grace, but there was no doubt in her movements that she knew the import of Anteac's words. Adequate was not well done. When the messenger had gone, Luyseyal said, she could have made some excuse to study the embassy and find out how many of the Ixians have been replaced. I think not, Anteac said. In that respect, she performed well. No, but it would have been better had she found a way to get a more detailed report from Yaki. I fear we have lost him. In other words, he's going to he's still alive at the point where the messenger's there, but he's probably going to be replaced by a face dancer. And if he attempted to flee, I think they would be on to him. So here we go. They're really going. Oh, sorry, I missed a bit there. I fear we have lost him. This is Luyseyal. The reason the Tleilaxu sent us that message is obvious, of course, Luyseyal said. They are really going to attack him, Anteac said. Naturally. It's what the fools would do. But I address myself to why they sent this message. Sorry, why they sent the message to us. Anteac nodded. They think we now have no choice except to join them. Aha. And if we try to warn the Lord Leto, the Tleilaxu will learn our messengers and their contacts. What if the Tleilaxu succeed? Anteac asked. Not likely. We do not know their actual plan, only its general timing. What if this girl, this Shanna, has a part in it? Luyseyal asked. Now that tells me that Shanna is still a mystery to the various groups, if you like. We're going to find out a little bit more in relation to the guild here, but they don't really know much about her at all. I have asked myself that same question. Have you heard the full report from the guild? Only the summary. Is that enough? Yes, with high probability. Let me just check that. Oops. Where are we? Yes, with high probability. Yeah, that's fine. At this point, as I was reading along, I actually scribbled down the word mentat and then realized that it was revealed in the next section, which happens to me a lot. As I do my notes, I do it as we go with the story. This is Luyseyal. You should be careful with terms such as high probability, Luyseyal said. We don't want anyone thinking you're a mentat. Now, I've written next to this, very indiscreet. Anteac's use of a term here is one thing. In other words, saying high probability is one thing. She could be a mathematician, a logician, statistician, number of things other than a mentat, using the term high probability. It's as simple as that. But Luyseyal says it out loud. You should be careful with terms such as high probability. We don't want anyone thinking you're a mentat. Anteac's use of the term, here's one thing, but Luyseyal says mentat out loud. And if we know anything in this Dune universe, everybody's spying on everybody else. I would, I think it's a very stupid thing for Luyseyal to say. Excuse me. Oh, goodness gracious. Pardon me. We're a bit tired tonight, folks. Pardon my yawn. Yeah, I very indiscreet, and it's kind of why I figured, as I said, there was no kind of real etymological work on Luyseyal as a name. But if we said it, ran it phonetically, Luyseyal. She's got loose lips and she says it all. She's a Bene Gesserit with skill, apparently, a great skill, but there's something not quite right with her in terms of how Anteac looks at her. It's possibly to do with her youth. She's away meditating when this is going on. Nobody, she doesn't seem fully involved. Has she read the report? She's not read the full report at all. She's read the summary. The York Notes version, if you like. It seems that she's a little bit lazy. as not as diligent perhaps as Antique in her duties. But I thought that was a howler here, and I've just written here, hope no one is spying on them. And Antique's tone was dry. I presume you will not give me away. It's quite possible that she just did. And it's quite possible that Antique might, if someone's listening, they now know that, and if the God Emperor has spies and there are face speakers right outside the door, it seems very indiscreet, especially in this universe, which is full of Byzantine intrigues, which is what we've got here. Do you think the guild is right about this, Shanna? Luyseyal asked. I do not have enough information. If they are right, she is something extraordinary. As the Lord Leto's father was extraordinary. A guild navigator could conceal himself from the oracular eye of the Lord Leto's father, but not from Lord Leto. I have read the full report with care. She does not so much conceal herself and the actions around her as, well, she fades, they said. She fades from their sight. She alone, Antique said. And from the sight of the Lord Leto as well? They do not know. Do we dare make contact with her? Do we dare not? Antique asked. Just backing up a wee second, folks. I do not have enough information. If they're right, she is something extraordinary, as the Lord Leto's father was extraordinary. In other words, is she a potential exquisite Satarak? That's what I got from that. And I think she is. A guild navigator could, just to point out, the exquisite Sataraks as we go through the Dune series evolve. None of them are the same. Paul's not the same as his father. Paul Leto II is not the same as his father in terms of his abilities. We've got Shanna, we've got others. And I'll not do any more spoiling there. Sorry. We'll keep it for whenever we get there. So the guild, interestingly enough, the guild can't hide. I got from this is that the guild can't hide from Leto II. A guild navigator could conceal himself from the oracular eye of Lord Leto's father. That's Paul Atreides, but not from the Lord Leto. So they can't hide, muddy the oracular waters, if you like, for the God Emperor. And it's not fully hiding. It seems that she fades, as it's put here. And I kind of wonder, is that just that something hasn't fully developed yet? If you see what I mean, that her full power hasn't come in. The question is, does she fade from the sight of God Emperor as well? We know that she does at this point in the book. Do we dare not? Antique asked. This all may be moot if the Tleilaxu. Antique, we should at least make the attempt to warn him. We have no communications devices, and there now are fish speaker guards at the door. They permit our people to enter, but not to leave. Should we speak to one of them? I have thought about that. We can always say we feared they were face dancers substitutes. This is an excuse here. Antique's basically come up with an excuse here for not informing the God Emperor. If we don't, this is what we can say. We thought that they were, because the Ixian Embassy had been taken over by face dancers, we kind of thought these fish speakers were face dancer substitutes. I've written down it's an excuse for not informing. Would it hold up? And I've written next to that, doubtful. Very much. Definitely not, I don't think. Luyseyal, guards at the door, Luyseyal muttered. Is it possible that he knows? Anything is possible. I've kind of went with, yeah, most likely, actually, to be honest with you. Does the God Emperor know what's going on here? With his abilities, I would say so. Guards at the door, Luyseyal muttered. Is it possible that he knows? Anything is possible. With the Lord Leto, that's the only thing you can say for sure, Luyseyal said. Antique permitted herself a small sigh as she lifted herself from the stool. How I long for the old days when when we had all of the spice we could ever need. I've scribbled down here atavistic, longing for the good old days. When you look back at a society and want your modern day society to be like that, it's also possibly the how would we put it, the desire of an addict, of a melange addict. And as a Reverend Mother, who's got the blue within blue eyes, again, for example, full withdrawal of melange for Anteac would be fatal. Carlos has said Beverly lives on through the Jessica type in Dune. The Yaqui were known for being fiercely loyal to their people and culture. Don't know if that helps. It's definitely, I think, in terms of as I said, I had nothing on it in terms of etymological work apart from like a couple of old kind of Americanized variants of German names, but the one that made sense to me, because we've had some stuff like that before, Yaqui instead of Yake, it's Yaqui. And then as soon as I literally thought about this, Carlos, about 5 minutes, I'd left a space in my notes about 5 minutes before coming on, and then I remembered, because the spelling Yaqui like that, you tend to not think about it, and then it depends on how you think about letters and phonetics and how you pronounce stuff. And it immediately just went, oh my God, is that Yaqui? And Frank certainly has an interest in that, in tribes like that. And I just remembered having this conversation with you, chatting on one of our episodes. It was, what was it, about all the different heavens? I thought the mythology, you were telling me something about your people. I was saying to you, I'd love to have a chat to you about it sometime. But if you have a wee look at the Yaqui on Wikipedia, what I thought was fascinating, absolutely brilliant, is the Yaqui cosmology and religion. It's one of the subheadings here. And I just thought this was wonderful in terms of mythology and stories, and particularly cosmologies and cosmogonies that I'm very interested in. The Yaqui concept of the world is considerably different from that of their European, Mexican, and European American neighbors. For example, many UMA believe that the universe is composed of overlapping yet distinct worlds or places called Aniam. 9 or more different Aniam are recognized. And this is what I thought was beautiful. From this culture, there's the Sea Ania, which is the flower world. Yo Ania, I hope I'm pronouncing these correctly. The enchanted world. Tenku Ania, a dream world. Tuku Ania, the night world. Huya Ania, the wilderness world. This was my favorite one. Nao Ania is the corn cob world. Kawi Ania is the mountain world. Vawe Ania is the world under the water. And Tika Ania is the world from the sky up through the universe. Each of these worlds has its own distinct qualities as well as forces. And UMA relate, I hope I'm saying that right, relate deer dancing with 3 of them, since the deer emerges from Yo Ania, an enchanted home, into the wilderness world, Hoya Ania, and dances in the flower world, Sea Ania, which can be accessed through the deer dance. Much Yaqui ritual is centered upon perfecting these worlds and eliminating the harm that has been done to them, especially by people. Many Yaqui have combined such ideas with their practice of Catholicism and believe that the existence of the world depends on their annual performance of the Lenten and Eastern rituals. It says that the Yaqui religion from 1500 to present is a syncretic religion of old Yaqui beliefs and practices and Christian teachings of Jesuit missionaries. I think you were telling me before, Carlos, that they basically brought Christianity to your people at gunpoint. But what a fascinating! I actually think most religions are kind of a blend of other things. To be honest with you, you can always look further back. Doesn't matter what your religion is. If you've got a starting point for it and go, that's where it all began. You can push further back in time. And what were your people before that? There's always it's always the case. It doesn't matter what religion it is. Everybody's monotheistic up to the point where you're all polytheistic prior to that. But what a fascinating culture, Carlos. I remember reading that before. I just thought I'd read it again. I like the idea of those worlds. You know, great. I love that cosmologies and cosmogonies are great fun. I like a good theogony as well, if you like. Um, yes, indeed. Known for being fiercely loyal to their people and culture. Don't know if that helps. Again, it's just knowing Frank's kind of interests and stuff like that, and we've kind of moved from North, Central, and South America with different cultures, but it was the best I could come up with in terms of the name. I actually wrote your name down, and I wonder if this is the Yaqui tribe, Carlos's people. I wrote down at the bottom of it. I think actually this is it. You know, the first part of the impossibly an oath or judicial swearing, a solemn appeal, perhaps. I don't. It's very rare that we get a name that we can't figure out fully, but we'll do our best with it. You know. So Beverly lives on through the Jessica type in June. Yeah, the Jessica type in June, by the way, is that certainly. Oh God, I'd have to read. I'm hoping to get through some of Frank Herbert's books again soon. Once I get through the Endymion books and finally finish the last couple of Lensman books, that's kind of my plan. Then I'm hitting Frank Herbert and probably just going to tear through his complete works, if you like. Quite a few of his books are quite short, so it shouldn't take me too long. But if you go through his first three books, Dragon in the Sea, female character is a Jessica type. In June, she's a Jessica type. In The Green Brain, she's a Jessica type. Actually, I remember chatting with Cara Kennedy about this, and I just pointed out to her that Frank has a type. But the red-headed kind of Colleen type, if you like, it's very much an Irish kind of archetype in many ways, is a kind of common thing in science fiction, oddly enough. And I discovered it in the Lensman books as well. It's a particular type of female hero, either red-haired and either green or blue-eyed. Generally, but yeah. So the main female protagonists in the first three of Frank's books are all Jessica types. I can't remember what they're like in the rest of them, but I dare say there's quite a few. Well, it seems to be a thing he goes with, being a blue-eyed redhead myself. But yes, indeed, Beverly lives on through the Jessica type in June. And I think a lot of the Bene Gesserit characters as well. Yaqui were known for being fiercely loyal to the people and culture. Don't know if that helps. Frank did spend time living in Mexico, so he would know about the culture. And Baked Alaska Joe says, don't forget the like button. Thank you very much, Joe. I always forget that kind of stuff. I'm not that into it, to be honest with you. But it's appreciated. Yeah, I think it's kind of what stops the channel getting picked up, actually, believe it or not. So it's probably something I should try and start doing, if we get the like button. Yes, but there we go. As I said, it's the best I have with it. But I think that, as you say, Frank spent time living in Mexico. He would know about the culture. He certainly investigates a lot of cultures, I think, like that. And I don't see why not. It's the best I've got so far. I think it's a character we're not going to see much of, unfortunately. You could take the twist that I suppose that if it was the Yaqui that, interestingly enough, you can run that the Bene Gesserit are a female form of the Jesuits. There you go. And that this poor Yaqui who's in their service as a spy in the Tleilaxu Embassy is going to end up dead, very much, I think. And it's not that they're going to try and rescue him or save him here, that they consider him lost. So who knows? Best I've got. There's I think probably 2 or 3 names in the entire Dune series that we haven't got full etymological work on. And I tend to come back to them. I leave gaps in the book so I can come back and scribble notes and again ask the audience if anybody's got anything better. Love to hear it, you know. So we had this, yes, indeed, we had this excuse presented by Anteac for not possibly if we don't inform them. Yeah, there's a few kind of interesting things here. Pardon me, let me just see where we caught up to. How long for the old days when we had all this? Sorry, pardon me. How long for the old days when we had all the spice we could ever need? Bit atavistic, isn't it? But it's also suggestive of addiction, the need for the drug melange. This has all come from the way that the God Emperor is treating the Bene Gesserit in this chapter. Most likely they're going to lose. And again, we've got hydraulic despotism in this chapter, as it's the God Emperor who meets and doles out melange alliances. The Bene Gesserit, in this case, of course, her name is Tertius, which means third. We were to have been third, Anteac said earlier. The suggestion is that all of the melange will be handed out by the time it gets to the God Emperor gets to them, because they're going to be last, and that's not a good thing. They need their drugs, don't they? There is one thing that's never really made any kind of sense about that, is that we were actually informed way back. I believe it was in June. I'm not too sure, but we have notes on it anyway. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's in June. Is that up until the arrival of melange, there are other drugs that can be used to create that the Reverend Mothers can use. The problem is, as it's pointed out in the book, that once you use melange, all of the other drugs become useless. But there's no reason I see that they couldn't have a generationally new Reverend Mothers being brought up on the new drugs and not letting them near melange. But there are definitely alternatives for the Bene Gesserit. I don't know, it's possibly lost knowledge, or possible that melange is just so good at what it does that they don't want to give it up, refuse to give up this drug. And again, it's an analog for oil and potable water, isn't it? Where did we get to? Sorry. Oh, sorry, I've jumped back a few pages here just to have a wee quick look at that. Yeah, how long for the old days when we had all the spice we could ever need. Ever was just another illusion, Luyseyal said. I hope we have learned our lesson well, no matter how the Tleilaxu make out today. I quite like Luyseyal as a character, that she seems quite human. She's flawed in some ways here in this chapter, but she seems quite bright as well. She seems quite sharp. Again, we talk about these female characters. I think she's a well-balanced character. The two of these Reverend Mothers go well together. But that statement there, as I said, as much as the previous indiscretion, she seems a little bit lazy, but she's also one of the best truth-sayers the Bene Gesserit have. This little comment from Anteac, I suppose, shows some of the differences in, I suppose, the elderly and the young Reverend Mothers here. But ever was just another illusion, Luyseyal said. I hope we have learned our lesson well, no matter how the Tleilaxu make out today. That seems quite sensible. They will do it clumsily, whatever the outcome, Anteac grumbled. Gods, there are no good assassins to be found anymore. That's a statement, isn't it? Dear. Especially the level of kind of the use of assassins, if you like, within the Dune universe prior to this, especially in Dune. Thufir Hawat is the master of assassins for House Atreides. The whole kind of ideas of Canley, this kind of thing, Chalmurky and Chalmus, poison, poison snoopers, all of that. It's a universe of assassins and stuff like that. I've often described the Northern Ireland conflict as a war of assassins. Very much so. It's certainly not a conventional war. Pardon me. They will do it clumsily, whatever the outcome. I thought that's a dangerous assumption from a Bene Gesserit. How does she know they'll do it clumsily? Gods, there are no good assassins to be found anymore. There are always the Gola Idahos, Luyseyal said. What did you say? Anteac stared at her companion. There are always... Yes! The Golas are too slow in the body, Luyseyal said, but not in the head. What are you thinking? Is it possible that the Tleilaxu? No, not even they could be that. An Idaho face dancer, Luyseyal whispered. Anteac nodded mutely. Foreshadowing. Love this. I love this bit of writing here. It's the energy in it, the oh shit kind of. I don't know, sorry, I have to apologize. I've said the word shit so many times tonight. It's not like my good self at all. Luyseyal, put it out. Anteac nodded mutely. Luyseyal says this. Put it out of your mind, Luyseyal said. They could not be that stupid. I've written next to that. Why not? That's a dangerous judgment to make about Tleilaxu, Anteac said. We must prepare ourselves for the worst. Get one of those fish speaker guards in here. So that's the end of the chapter. The decision is made there. There's a switch to that urgency. We've got that exclamation mark. Get them in now. The assumption of stupidity is a dangerous judgment to make, as Anteac points out here. We know that the Tleilaxu do things. The whole thing about the Duncan Idaho Gola, the assassination attempt on Paul, for example, way back in Dune Messiah, all of it that's not what it's about at all. It's all about everything is to do with, oh, sure, if that works, that's great, we can find it. But it's the plan within the plan. Within the plan is ultimately to find out. It's all done to see if we can restore the original memories of a Gola. Anything else is a bonus, but that's really what it's all about. We have a sense here that if the Tleilaxu definitely attacked the God Emperor, went for it, even though it might seem stupid, it might seem risky, it might be doomed to fail, it might not be why they're doing it at all. And what I will say is, in relation to those of us who know the full Dune series, I don't think they're that stupid either, and especially in terms of how the Tleilaxu view God and their work in the language of God, as it's put. I certainly wouldn't consider them stupid. So it's very, very right that the Anteac points out that's a dangerous judgment. Though, of course, she's made something similar that they'll do it clumsily, whatever the outcome. Not necessarily so. But again, that's a dangerous assumption, as much as she tells Luyseyal off that for suggesting that they could be that stupid. Why not? Everybody can be stupid, I think. We can all do stupid things. But the Tleilaxu, whatever it is they're up to, again, we've got to remember that within these books we have these self-repeating patterns, but therefore we should always expect that there's a plan within a plan within a plan. Especially with the Tleilaxu, what's the real? I think somebody left a wee comment on one of my videos there today about the little details in Dune. And I'd left them a wee comment because it's something that we've pointed out before, is that when these grand things are happening, it's the little things that actually really move and shape the novel, So just in relation to our epigraph, sharing, the Bene Gesserit are going to share this knowledge with the fish speakers. We seem to have a relationship of sharing information with the Bene Gesserit, the Ixians, and the Guild. We also have a kind of sharing going on between the Bene Tleilax and the Bene Gesserit, is that they want them to come and share the risk. And their assumption is, the Tleilaxu assumption here is that because it looks like the Bene Gesserit are going to lose out on any kind of melange allotment from the God Emperor here, that they might as well come and join us and risk all to try and kill the guy. Because if we can get rid of him, the universe changes. And we can all go back to being, well, hey, getting up to whatever it is we want to get up to with our melange. I don't know. Can you ever imagine the entire Bene Gesserit sisterhood doing cold turkey? And it's interesting, I think, that the cold turkey doesn't seem to be much of an option with these, with many of these drugs in the Dune universe. Just wean yourself off them. Yeah. Well, goodness gracious me, folks, there we go. That's the end of our chapter. We've got a couple of big chapters coming, really important ones, where the action's going to kick off. Pardon me. Yeah, quite a big chapter for next time. Not give away too much, we'll keep it for that. But chapter 17 and 18, I suppose we're going to see the culmination of this plot. It's a great chapter. And we get the sense that actually the Bene Gesserit kind of have possibly figured this out. Both of these women, these Reverend Mothers, are truth-sayers, and at the same time, Anteac, by the looks of it, is a mentat, which is supposed to be illegal in this universe. So once again, Bene Gesserit, as much as Lord Leto is happy to break all sorts of prescriptions and laws and rules, so is everybody else. I think, but it's a great wee chapter. Very much so. The plot driven forward. We've got real movement here. As I said, I've called it a little Byzantine intrigue here in my chapter heading, and I really enjoyed it. I actually thought it was it was a shame that the chapter wasn't more fleshed out, that there wasn't more of it. But at the same time, I think it goes the way it goes, and we hit this sense of urgency that's going to drive the plot forward, drive the action forward. We've also got a reminder that Hui Nori's arriving as well. I'm not sure, but you got how many more? Possibly we'll be hitting our. Not too many pages left in our notebook, so we'll be hitting a new one quite soon as well. So there we go, folks. As Big Alaska Joe says, don't forget the like button if you enjoy the show, or if you fancy subscribing. Give us a wee click, But that's us. We just hit 1 o'clock. Goodness gracious, crack's been mighty as usual tonight. Well, a little bit of a religious talk within this stuff. We have to address subjects like this within the Dune universe. It's the same with some of Frank's ideas are a wee bit quirky, and we're going to have a look at some of the esoteric ideas about the sort of being that the God Emperor of Dune is based on. Abraxas, this kind of thing. Some of these Gnostic ideals, and again, stuff that comes out of esoteric religions that developed out of this. I've said to Julian that I'm going to have to do a wee bit of research on this. I've encountered this stuff before. My study of, particularly in studying the early Christian church, the Roman Empire, I've encountered Montanists and Martianists and things like that. It's from a long, long time ago. It just occurred to me there, actually, this just there the other day. In a month's time, it'll be 30 years since I got my classics degree and my Irish studies degree, and it was just I was just actually amazed that I can remember anything. But we don't do too badly, I think. But there we go, folks. Another chapter of God Emperor of Dune, and we'll have chapter 17 ready for you for next week. A fair bit of work to do on it. And we will also have, hopefully, I'm going to be piling into it. Just had a wee bit of bother with my eyesight there, just a bit of dry eyes, but hopefully we'll have the Batracho Myomachia up for you before the weekend's over. I think it's 18 pages in total that I've done with the Chapman translation, and I've 7 of them fully edited now. So it's a very tedious process of going through the audio file and removing all sort of little clicks and gasps and air that all the noises that we normally sort of make when we speak that you generally don't really hear on audiobooks and stuff. I just try to filter them out. Makes the recording much cleaner, So it'll be interesting if anybody doesn't know it. It's a book that's attributed to Homer. It's probably not by Homer at all. It's actually it's attributed to a number of different ancient writers, but also include one of whom is Luyseyal, our great grandfather of science fiction, if you like. So I'm hoping, I don't know, it's an odd little thing. The Batracho Myomaki. It won't be everybody's cup of tea, but I don't think there are too many versions of Chapman's translation online. So I think there are prose versions of it. What I'm hoping to present to you is the poetic one. And I have to say this, it was a damn difficult thing to read and to try and get right. So I'm hoping it'll, fingers crossed, I'm hoping it will come across all right. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. As I said, it's the war between the frogs and mice, and it's kind of basically a children's version of the Iliad. And it's for anybody, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Iliad or not, but the Iliad is an outrageously violent epic poem. Especially violent in its descriptions, and the Batracho Myomaki carries some of that with it. So it's interesting in terms of a children's story about version of the Iliad that it carries that kind of same horror of war, the Iliad, I think, and the Odyssey both convey. I don't know if anybody's seen the trailer for Christopher Nolan's new Odyssey film. I'm not sure what to think about it at all, to be honest. I basically saw who's the actor that plays Spider-Man? Is it Tom Holland? Talking about his daddy. And I just thought, oh God, not father or but daddy, dad. I heard the words daddy and dad in the trailer, and I just went, oh shit. Excuse me, it seems it's just been like that South Park episode with the shit counter going today. I do apologize. I'm normally not that bad with things like that. At the same time, I've been having a week, so I don't really care. But there we go, folks. Listen, it's been brilliant chatting to you all tonight. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Hope it hasn't offended anybody too much. It's as is can be like to do with religion, but I don't think we've really been talking about religion too much today. It's actually been more the nature of an omnipotent being, and there are a few tricky topics within this book, as we've encountered before, and as always, we'll hit them without bias, and we'll try and look at them in an academic way. The intent is never to offend anybody. The intent is to kind of educate us in relation to what the heck's going on with this Dune series, But it's always good to chat about different things around the world. But yeah, it's just been not a great week, I think, for the history of Northern Ireland this week. And just been a week of death everywhere, I think, and our potential death and bond. It's bad to see them back. Very bad to see them back indeed. But there we go. Look, anyway, folks, I will say thank you very much to everybody tonight. It's been a great crack. I hope you are all keeping well. Look after yourselves. Be safe. And we'll be back next Thursday at 10 p.m. GMT +1 with Chapter 17. It's going to be a lengthy one. It's about 10.5 pages, so that it will take us a wee while to get through. And then the following chapter, I suppose, is the payoff from this one. So I'm really looking forward to getting these two done. And so hopefully we'll have a Batracho Myomaki up for you before the weekend. And then I've got to pick a new story, and I'm going to go with a science fiction one for an audiobook. I'm thinking maybe a little bit of Alfred Bester or something. I was possibly thinking about, oh no, I'll keep that quiet actually, something else. But yeah, something I was thinking about in relation to Dan Simmons, but I doubt very much it would be in public domain or anything like that, you know. So there's Julian saying, thanks, Doc, and all have a good night. Thank you, Julian. Yeah, take it easy, folks. Thanks, as always, for listening. I hope you're enjoying the book as much as I am. It's great to run through these books all these years later. And don't forget, if anybody's wanting to dive into a Dune book club, Nerd Cookies is starting on May the 14th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Should be running with chapters 1 to 3 of Frank Herbert's Dune. It's always good to have more book clubs online, different opinions and stuff like that. It's great to hear. Night, Doc, says Carlos. Night, everyone. Good night, folks. Take it easy. Be safe, be excellent, and we'll see you real soon. Be groovy. Good night, folks. All the very best. Bye-bye. Da, 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 da.